5 o'clock on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we're going to start the day with an endangered child alert. Tennessee Bureau of Investigation says a 5-month-old baby boy, William Jackson, is missing out of Marion County. They are looking for a 2012 white Ford F-150 with a Tennessee tag BBT 9363. If you see a vehicle matching that description, you are asked to call 1-800-TBI-FIND. Meanwhile, Israel at war, continuing coverage. Here's Derek Dennis.
New Israeli airstrikes into Gaza this morning, including areas in the south that were considered safe zones for Palestinians. And not to be outdone, the militant group Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed ally of Hamas, has been firing rockets back into Israel. President Biden, in a nationwide speech last night, calling on Congress to approve $14 billion in aid for Israel and another $60 billion for Ukraine as that country fights off Russia.
We cannot and will not let terrorists like Hamas and tyrants like Putin win. I refuse to let that happen. In moments like these, we have to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. The United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity.
Of course, the back-and-forth strikes come nearly 3 weeks after the surprise Hamas attack on Israel. Many believe an Israeli ground invasion into Gaza is imminent, with nearly 5,000 already killed on both sides.
Tennessee's congressional delegation quick to react to President Biden's Oval Office speech. Senior U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn says it was weak and the president failed to hold Iran accountable. Market Numbers Report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Here's Daria Albinger.
Stocks tumbled on new worries about bonds. The Dow fell 251 points, the Nasdaq lost 128, and the S&P closed down 37. For the first time since 2007, the markets are facing the prospect of a 5% yield on a 10-year Treasury note. Stocks have been feeling pressure from the bond market since this summer as investors who are worried about a recession look to less risky investments. The Federal Reserve will also be paying close attention as it decides what to do about interest rates. Speaking of the Fed, Chair Jerome Powell told the Economic Club of New York its steps to bring down inflation, mainly by raising interest rates, are working, but there's still a ways from the 2% target rate. He says it's too early to say how many rate hikes may be necessary in the months to come. First-time jobless claims fell to their lowest level in 8 months. Economists consider these kind of claims a proxy for layoffs, and they say it's a sign hiring is strong.
All right, let's check futures ahead of this morning's opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 67, S&P down 9, NASDAQ down 36. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And go, my fellow Americans.
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:06, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 and WTN. How are you, friends? Finally a Friday. I'm counting it down, man. 3 hours and 54 minutes is what we're looking at. And then I'm gone. Ken has to stay here till 12. Sorry, Ken. I always know what you're going to say after I say that I'm out of here in 3 hours and 54 minutes. You'll say, can I go home too? And I'm going to tell you, love you, Ken, no.
Yeah, but are some minutes faster than actual minutes?
Shut up, Ken. I've been up for a long time. Whatever. You couldn't just let it go. You couldn't just let it go.
Well, you have been up a long time, Brother Dan Mandis.
Listen, it's cool. Hey, by the way, listen, there is a lot going on. It's, by the way, you know what I was doing during the breaks, doing Red Eye Radio? You know what I was doing?
Push-ups?
Nope, certainly not. Listening to the new Rolling Stones album.
Yeah, I heard you talking to Brother Johnny B about that in the hallway there.
We'll talk about that at 5:35 here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk as far as what's going on in the Middle East. And, of course, I have my perspectives and opinion on Joe Biden's speech last night. A massive, massive mistake that the Biden administration has made that it looks like he's put some of our military folks at risk. What did Joe Biden and his administration do to literally put our military personnel in the region at risk? That is coming up here on Super Talk 99.7. This is a big news story, though. The Daily Wire and others now reporting the IDF has the green light to enter Gaza. Officials says Hamas tunnels is going to become the world's biggest cemetery. Now, you know, the IDF is the Israeli Defense Forces, and they now have the green light to enter Gaza to eradicate the Islamic terrorists responsible for murdering 1,400 Israelis in a terrorist attack last weekend. They've been given the green light from the politicians there in Israel. The economy minister says that the IDF was given the green light to enter Gaza and that their primary objective is to find all the terrorists and to wipe them out, even if it takes a year. Now, you know what's going to be interesting is how many of those terrorists, once the Israelis go in, do you think that they're going to just, and I'm asking this rhetorically, do you think they're just going to scatter like cockroaches? Or do you think that they're going to, because I believe that these terrorists, I believe that they are cowards. Because anybody who paraglides in with weaponry and then shoots a bunch of innocent people at a concert and mutilates babies, I mean, that is a cowardly act. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago where I saw that story, so many stories on that Monday after the attacks, where you had these Hamas terrorists and they've got their guns and they're cheering and they're in the back of a pickup truck and they're spitting on the body of a woman who they killed. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, as they're celebrating the death of this Israeli woman that they killed, you got, 4 guys with guns. And they're celebrating the death of this woman that they killed like they've actually accomplished something or done something. It's incredibly cowardly. And then to spit on the body. So for me, I take great, what's the right word? Not only do I take a great interest in this, but I'm really obviously rooting for the Israelis to turn it into the world's biggest graveyard, provided that it's the terrorists that they kill. Now, clearly, one of the issues that we're going to have, if you're on Israel's side, and I know that most of us are, is if the hostages are down there. That's going to be the problem, is if the hostages are being held as human shields, another cowardly act, by the way, by Hamas, then they're going to have to figure out a way to take out Hamas, yet not kill the hostages. And I don't know how they do that, just so we're clear. I have no idea how they do that. But again, this is the breaking news. They're saying that they do have the green light to go in. Again, this is the economy minister from Israel saying that he would not discuss the IDF's specific plans on when it will all begin, when they will enter Gaza, only that they have been given the authorization to enter and begin their ground offensive. Now, you've got, 400,000 at last count. I don't know how many, that's what I heard. I don't know if there's been an adjustment to that number, but 400,000 really pissed off Israelis going to go in there. And you know that they're just, champing and chomping at the bit to get in there. They're not going to talk about what the specific plans are. They have about 200, a little over 200 hostages that have been kept inside Gaza by the terrorists from Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Those two terror groups, they say, are estimated to have approximately 50,000 fighters total. 50,000 fighters total. But you see, it's not just about the 50,000 fighters that, the Hamas and the Palestinian Jihad have, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It's not just 50,000 versus 400,000. Because Israel clearly has the weaponry as well, more advanced weaponry. But once they go in, then all bets are off, because that's when Iran might start, firing rockets. And by the way, part of the news cycle today is our warships have knocked down a couple of missiles that were presumably heading towards Israel. So we're involved. We've got, 3? I think the last count, we had 3 warships in the region. And now those warships are being utilized to knock down these rockets. Once Israel goes in, and I do wonder if they will almost ceremoniously go in this weekend, because the attack itself happened on a weekend. What was it? Was it Friday night into Saturday? It was Friday night into Saturday morning. If I remember right, I woke up on Saturday and the war had started a couple of weeks ago. So I wonder if they'll go in tonight, and because it would be 2 weeks to the day when the first initial attack happened. But once Israel goes in, then Iran has been, saber rattling and talking about how, there's going to be an earthquake of an attack on Israel. And, that's when the next stage begins. We already know that Hezbollah has been doing what they've been doing in the northern part of Israel. So you've got now seemingly a battle on 2 fronts. The big one is on the border with Gaza, but Hezbollah has been doing their own thing, and Israel has been dealing with that as well. There is a lot going on. And as we continue to talk about this, they say part of the reason that the IDF is believed to have delayed their ground offensive into Gaza was because officials were concerned that Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed terrorist group based in Lebanon, was preparing to launch a full-scale attack on Israel's northern border the moment that IDF went into Gaza, hoping to catch Israel off guard and lacking the necessary resources to respond. I mean, Hezbollah has some rockets, all funded, by the way, by Iran. Thank you, Joe Biden. Hezbollah, which is estimated to have approximately 20,000 soldiers, has approximately 150,000 rockets in its arsenal, and has better training and equipment than Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Countries have told their citizens to quickly leave Lebanon, including the United States, also part of the news cycle today. United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, Canada, France, Kuwait, Netherlands, Spain, Germany, and Australia as well. So they're ready. I mean, everybody's just waiting for that shoe to drop. Talking about that $100 million to Gaza. I was discussing this right at the tail end of Red Eye Radio. Basically, according to the Biden State Department, if you missed it, we have an agreement with Hamas that the $100 million in aid is going to go to the people of Gaza. Again, they have an agreement with Hamas. Now, realize they also had an agreement with Iran that the $6.5 billion for the hostages, that would go to humanitarian aid. And then Iran came back and said, no, we can use that money for whatever we want. So I guess the question is, when there's an agreement made with these nations or these entities, does the Biden administration really think that these nations or these entities, these terrorist groups, these organizations are going to live up to those agreements? Of course not. That's why we're considered so weak across the world stage. 5:15, time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. 5:16, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. As far as your weather goes, partly cloudy and a high of 70 today. Sunny weekend ahead. High on Saturday of 79. High on Sunday, 69. And right now it is 58 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. How many people actually died in that Gaza hospital? You know, this is going to be a perpetual conversation. Part of the news today is an open question for a lot of the media, which is, did you learn anything with your reporting of the hospital that was supposedly bombed by Israel? Clearly it was not. But has the media learned anything? I got to tell you, if there is any moment in American history where the media has looked really bad, it's right now. Like the glory days of, the media actually having credibility and being, sort of narrative and agenda free, long gone. And the more that this stuff happens, the less credibility the media has. The death toll in Gaza hospital blast, greatly exaggerated. Apparently now independent intel is showing that it wasn't 500. It was closer to somewhere around 10, 20, 50, pretty much there. And no, as President Biden acknowledged last night during his big, message to the people, also that Israel, he said this a second time now, Israel was not responsible for that blast. And by the way, also talking about Rashida Tlaib. I made a big deal, and I should have, and I was right to do it. I made a big deal out of Rashida Tlaib. Now, remember, she is part of the squad, and she's incredibly anti-Semitic. And she had, as you know, she had not only tweeted out that Israel had attacked this hospital and bombed this hospital, but then she was also in front of a whole bunch of her followers during this little rally event, whatever it is that you want to say. And she, despite all of the evidence that was available, she actually said, she reiterated that it was her opinion that Israel had attacked that hospital. This is what she said.
Continue to watch people think it's okay to bomb a hospital with children.
Shame, shame.
You know what's so hard sometimes is watching those videos and the people telling the kids don't cry. I'm like, let them cry.
So,
good grief.
And the thing is now that reporters are now
making fun of her
and chasing her. They find her at our nation's capital and where her office is, because sometimes the offices are not at the actual Capitol building.
Yeah.
And they're asking her, okay, why have you not deleted the tweets accusing Israel of bombing that hospital?
Yeah.
And when will you be rescinding the accusation that Israel attacked that hospital that you made yesterday during this rally?
Mm-hmm.
Because you lied. You absolutely lied. You know what happened?
She lied and cried.
She lied, lying and crying, Rashida Tlaib. You know what she did when the media caught up with her? She actually ran to her car.
Is there video of that?
I'm looking.
I got to see that, man.
Because that's what she does. I mean, there was another video a while ago, and it was the same thing where a reporter is trying to ask her a question, and she's like fast walking to the elevator. And then finally you hear the elevator ding, and she's just clearly waiting for the elevator. And it's the longest elevator wait in the history of elevator waits.
Yeah.
And so she's running now from the media. It would be a lot easier just to say, you know what? I was wrong. But she won't, clearly, because you know why? Because she's Rashida Tlaib. It is 5:21 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Endangered child alert. Little baby boy taken near Chattanooga. Keep an eye out for a 2012 white F-150 with Tennessee tag BBT 9363 and call 1-800-TBI-FIND if you see a vehicle like that with a baby in it. We got the latest on the war in the Middle East. Metro Police asking owners of certain Kia and Hyundais to do something to keep them from getting stolen. These stories and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 527, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So just to tell you where we're going today, because I've got a lot of stories for you and a lot of stuff that I didn't cover on Red Eye Radio. What did you guys think of Joe Biden's speech last night? Now, the reason why I think this is so interesting is because I saw some people who are conservative that thought that it was a really good speech. Britt Hume of Fox News came out and he said that he thought that Joe Biden's speech was actually really good and that it was his strongest speech that he's done since taking the White House. Now, I realize that there's low expectations. But, I mean, at least for me, when I watched the president's speech last night, I'm going to get into a deep dive on this in the 6 o'clock hour. But when I watched the president's speech, the whole thing was a contradiction because what he said he's doing and what we need to do as a nation and a world is in direct contradiction to what he has been doing for the past 3 years in arming Iran and making Iran stronger. Really not a lot of conversation about the hostages either. We'll get into all of that in the 6 o'clock hour right here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Coming up next, it is the Gang of Three Amigos. I like to call fall as open window weather, but if you've got old windows that are hard to open and close, well, that is an issue. Which is why, if you're thinking about getting new windows, you've got to call my friends at Window Nation. And another great deal going on right now from Window Nation. Get 2 windows free for every 2 that you buy. Plus, put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 2 full years. Now, these are the folks that I turn to for new windows in my basement studio. And you should too. Great quality, great customer service, and new windows mean that you'll save on your energy bills as well, up to 30% more. So call Window Nation today at 866-90-NATION, 866-90-NATION, windownation.com, and remember that great deal. Get 2 windows free for every 2 that you buy. There is no limit, plus no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 2 full years. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com.
5:30 on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Got an endangered child alert in Tennessee. Little 5-month-old baby boy by the name of William missing in Marion County, just west of Chattanooga. The baby's white with blue eyes, blonde hair, and only 16 pounds. He may be with someone driving a 2012 white F-150 with Tennessee tag BBT 9363. Police ask that if you see that vehicle or know anything about this case, call 1-800-TBI-FIND. Continuing coverage now, Israel-Hamas war. Richard Cantu.
With Israel about to invade Gaza, the Israeli aerial bombardment continues. Conditions getting worse by the hour.
People left without food, water, and medicine. Surgeries at some hospitals are reportedly being done without anesthetic. President Biden says he brokered a deal to get humanitarian aid into Gaza, and the White House is hopeful the Rafah crossing on the Egyptian border will be open today. But repairs to a road near the crossing, damaged by an Israeli airstrike, are taking longer than expected.
ABC's Andrew Dimbert. President Biden addressed the nation Thursday night after his Israel trip.
I caution the government of Israel not to be blinded by rage. And here in America, let us not forget who we are. We reject all forms of hate, whether against Muslim, Jews, or anyone.
The administration is preparing a $105 billion proposal for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and border security, but Congress would have to approve that.
Yeah, right now in our nation's capital, 7th District Congressman Mark Green posted reaction on X saying the president's providing zero guarantees to ensure that $100 million for Gaza doesn't get into the hands of Hamas. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
.536 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for the gang of three amigos. Morning, Ken. How are you?
Good morning, boys. I'm good, yes.
Johnny B, how are we doing, man?
Oh, great, Dan. How are you?
Fantastic. If I were any better, I'd be at home.
That is a good idea, Brother Dan. Let me go home and see how good I feel.
You know what's interesting? Ken, I think maybe we should bring this up.
Okay, let's do it.
It is so clear that you don't love your job as much as I do.
Oh, I love my job.
Because you're always trying to go home. Always trying to go home. You love to leave your job is what it is.
Boy, I do. I'm telling you, at 11:33, my ass catches fire, and I'm in that parking lot in probably within about 15 seconds.
There you go. I'm right there with you. There's an interesting study out, and I actually found this fascinating. Although I don't know why they needed a study to do this.
Yeah.
You know what they say to relax and get away from work when you're at home? You know what they tell you to do?
What's that?
Watch movies.
I do that sometimes.
Yeah, they actually call it now something. You know what they call it? Film therapy.
I'm always got to have a name for it.
You got to have a name for it.
Yeah.
And they, as I said, they call it film therapy. But as I said, I don't understand why they needed a name for it, because isn't that what everybody just does? Isn't that what everybody does on the weekend? Like, I can tell you, for example, this weekend, it's going to be some sort of movie, some sort of something or another, just so that I can escape all of the blood and the gore and everything that's been going on in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because you know what? There's just a lot going on. And, I don't know if there's ever been a time where I've wanted to escape more than right now. And so for me, I actually, this is kind of funny. I made a list of all the various movies and shows that I need to finish.
Tom Cruise in one of them?
No, I finished all those.
Oh, okay.
Ken? No, but the morning show, I've got to finish the morning show.
Oh, the series, the morning.
The series, the morning show. Yes, the series, the morning show.
Mm-hmm.
I need to finish When Women Kill, which is another show that I've got 4 episodes left.
Yeah.
And then Amy has this whole list of movies that I have not seen, and she's embarrassed for me that I haven't seen these movies. And so I'm just trying to plow through all of those as well. So for me, it's just going to be a weekend. Although what's the weekend? It's going to be partly cloudy and a high of 70 today. Sunny weekend. Highs on Saturday and Sunday, 79, 69 respectively. In other words, I'm to be expected to go outside.
Yeah, I'm going to go outside for a little while.
I don't want to go outside. I want to stay home.
I'm going to go outside.
I'm going outside.
I'm going to go outside, and then I'm going to go back inside.
Okay. Very good.
But, yeah, I got some football to watch this weekend.
Yeah, you know what? I saw that the AP poll is out, and Tennessee, is they up to 8th? Is that where they're at?
I don't know where they're at.
How do I know where the Vols are on the AP poll and you don't?
I don't think they're number 8.
You might want to check that. Maybe they're number 9.
I don't think they're number 9 either.
You might want to check that. They might be number 10.
Well, either
keep
way,
going.
They got to go down to Tuscaloosa.
That's right.
And take on that Alabama Crimson Tide.
Nick Saban.
Oh, are they playing Alabama this weekend?
Yes.
And let me tell you something.
In
I'm gonna watch that.
Tuscaloosa.
Them folks down in Tuscaloosa are looking for some retribution.
Are they still be hurt from that beatdown that they took last year?
I don't know if it was a beatdown.
Oh, apparently I'm wrong. You're right. It was a field goal. 48-59 says, damn, they're 17th.
Yeah, they're not in the top 10.
I try so hard to sound manly, and it just doesn't work.
It's not a thing of being manly. It's just,
You know what the thing is, though? I'm
pay attention to football.
I'm actually excited because I know what the AP poll is, sort of.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it's not political. Well, yeah, I guess it is political in some
Well, it is
ways.
political in the sports world, but I used to not understand what the polling was. And now I at least do, so I clearly don't pay that close of attention. But I know what it means now. Okay. It still doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. But I'm going to watch the game.
Oh, yes.
Who is slated to win? Like, who's favored to win?
I think Alabama is favored, but it's not by much.
Okay.
It may be like 7 points, something like that. But I think this year's affair could be a little bit lower scoring than last year's affair. Because I think the two teams this year, their defenses, I think, are their strengths.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Especially Alabama. Alabama's pissed off, frankly, to tell you the truth, because everybody started doubting them. And they don't like that sort of thing.
By the way, 7686 says, and Oklahoma still sucks.
Yeah, we suck so bad we're 6-0.
Oh, well, then this guy's actually clearly wrong.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, he was
or
just,
she.
He was being like facetious.
But I understand, especially if he's a pronghorn. Anyway.
Pronghorn.
Alabama and
Wow.
Tennessee. That is, for me, that's going to be the marquee matchup along with Ohio State and Penn State.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a good one.
Now, those are a couple of top 10 teams right there. Number 3, Ohio State, going to be hosting number 7, Penn State. Is this the year that Penn State can finally prove to everybody we're not just the third best team in the Big Ten? We can beat Ohio State or Michigan.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you literally spend your entire weekend watching football?
A good part of it.
Do you really?
Yeah, on Saturday.
Okay. And listen,
I watch the Titans on Sunday. Then after that, I watch my stories.
I'm not criticizing. I'm just asking.
That's what I do, man, on Saturdays. And now I do get out and about on Saturday, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm most of Saturday I'm watching football, college football.
9061 says, stop being Danley and start being manly.
Wow.
You know what? I like when the listeners are creative in their insults.
They're
with
just
the super
joshing.
texters and they're creative. And listen, it's all good. And that's actually pretty funny.
That is pretty good.
Did you watch did you guys watch Joe Biden and
Yes.
the whole thing
I
last
did.
night?
I did, and my wife and I both said the same thing. What about America?
There you go. What about America?
What about what's happening here?
John, did you watch it? No?
I did not.
So this is, Amy, I think she's going to take the batteries out of the remote. I kept pausing it. This is what drives her crazy about me. Like when we watch movies together and when there's something political going on, I'm constantly pausing the TV. And it's like she just, if she ever makes an appearance on the Gang of Three Amigos, one of the things that if somebody asks her, what is the most annoying thing about Dan? One of the things that she'll say is, we need more time. Number 2, one of the things that she'll say is, he's always pausing the remote, the TV, always pausing it, whether it is a sporting event or whether if it's a political thing that's going on, I will pause and comment.
Well, that's your rhythm.
You know what we call that? We call that pause and pontificate.
Pause and pontificate.
That's what I'm going to tell her. That I'm going to keep doing that, pausing and pontificating.
I would love to have Amy on the Gang of Three Amigos.
That would
I
be
think
funny.
that she is very funny.
You know
Amy,
what? I believe that she would clam up. I think she would clam up.
But she's funny in a tough way. You don't mess with Amy. I would not want to mess with all 3 of our wives.
Amy's a smart
Don't
aleck.
mess with them. No.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And Amy's a smart aleck. She is funny in sort of a sardonic kind of way. She's got a lot of
kind of a dangerous
gallows humor. Yeah. We're still joking about that whole. Are you gonna hit me now? From a while back, and for people who may have missed that, just real quick, a woman cut in front of us in line for the tram at Dollywood. Woman starts, yelling at us because we said something, and she's getting into Amy's face, and Amy just stopped her in her tracks by saying, "Are you going to hit me now?" And the woman just didn't know what to say. I mean, it was just every time she and I talk about that, we just start laughing. But yeah, so I pause and pontificate, and I will admit that I've got a pausing and pontificating problem. It is something that, when I started doing that. I started doing that when remote controls were invented.
So back whenever we were in grade school.
Even back when I was a kid watching Gilligan's Island, I would pause it and I would say, "Dad, why the hell can't they get off the island if they can make a radio out of coconuts?"
And
you know what I mean?
And where does Ginger live?
Yeah. And how did they pack for a 3-hour trip and have everything they ever wanted?
Why do the Howells have like tuxedos on the island?
All of their money.
And all the jewelry. You know what I mean? It just, my dad would get irritated with me because he would say, I can hear his cadence today.
Yeah.
Son, can you just watch TV and shut up?
So it goes all the way back to that.
It goes all the way back to when I was a kid.
See, that's what I'm saying, man. You just have to be this way to do what you do. It's just got to be in you.
Yeah.
You don't learn to be a talk show host.
No.
It's just got to be in you.
Yeah. When I worked with Dr. Laura many years ago, many years ago now, she used to actually say to me, because she told me that I should try it. And it wasn't until years later that I did. But she told me, she said, Dan, you never shut up. So have you ever just thought about getting paid to do this and taking a shot at being a talk show host? And I talked for like 15 minutes on just that. So you're
good at it, buddy.
You're
good at it.
When we worked together, we were in the same studio because I was like what Johnny does now. I ran the board and call screened and all these things. And during the commercial breaks, I would just become like, chatty Danny. And early on, she actually did, and I love Dr. Laura dearly. She said, Dan, we're going to have to come to an agreement that during the breaks, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say next, and so you need to shut up. You know what I'm noticing? I've actually heard shut up a lot in my life from my parents and my wives and even my coworkers. So, I'm not going to clearly because I've got another minute and a half to fill of this segment.
Well, real quick.
Yes.
Something I want you guys to check out on Netflix. It is The Fall of the House of Usher. It is #1 in the United States right now. Jennifer and I are watching it. It is absolutely incredible.
And what's it about?
It is based on I think it's Edgar Allan Poe, like an old Edgar Allan Poe story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's creepy. I mean, creepy. It's not for the kids. Don't watch it with the little ones around.
Well, it's a Riker-free weekend this weekend, buddy.
Woo! Well,
and that doesn't signify anything, people. I'm just saying it's a Riker-free weekend, so we can watch what we want.
We'll take a little time out for The Fall of the House of Usher. Check that out.
Is that a movie or
it's
is
a
it
series?
Do you know what I watched over the last weekend? I watched Haunted Mansion, the newer version of the Haunted Mansion.
I haven't seen the new one.
It's really good.
The newer version. Is it? Because I really like the old one, too.
Old one was good. By the way, 7422 says, I only paused TV during Gilligan's Island during the Marianne scenes. Right there with you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've done it a million times, but anytime you go down the road of Gilligan's Island, we've got to ask the question, Ginger or Marianne? I'm a Marianne guy. Oddly enough, though, I have a thing for redheads, but Marianne was always my fave because she was more like a denim-clad woman, which is what I tend to prefer.
For me, it was Lovey.
Yeah, that's also creepy, by the way, Ken.
Yeah, Mrs. C, too.
Lovey.
I like Mrs. C.
Such a weirdo. Johnny, help us. Please tell me that you were into at least like, Joni or something.
Joni. Oh, God.
Oh, wait, I just went full on Happy Days, didn't I?
Boy, you really did.
Actually, no, I went Joni Loves Chachi. That's what I did.
I like the gal that played Nancy Drew. What was it? Pamela Sue Martin?
Nancy Drew.
Yeah.
I'll have to look.
Johnny just went deep, man. That blows my mind. Nancy Drew?
Pamela Sue Martin. Yeah, she was a very pretty girl.
I'm going to look at her.
All right, I got 2 words for you, too. Christy McNichol.
I never was really into her.
But you were into Lovey. You know what, Ken? I don't even know who you are anymore.
Christy McNichol.
I liked Christy McNichol.
I think she liked Mrs. C.
Yeah. Well, who doesn't?
That would be me, actually. And I think that she was only into Thurston Howell for the money.
Well,
I think that's also
definitely
part of the.
Yeah.
I think we're done now.
I think so.
5:52, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Dan Mandis here for the Wellness Institute of Nashville. If you are sick of losing quality of life because of chronic back, neck, or knee pain, call my friends at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Now, they can help you today and do it at a reasonable price. Right now, they're offering half off of spinal decompression therapy for your chronic back and neck pain. Not only are they offering half off, but your first appointment is just $23. And that does include your first exam, consultation, x-rays, and that first treatment as well. 615-246-5009. Call him today. Tell him Dan Mandis told you to reach out. 615-246-5009. Take advantage of a half-off spinal decompression therapy special for your chronic back, neck, or knee pain. And that first appointment is just $23. 615-246-5009. The Wellness Institute of Nashville, painisbad.com.
Endangered Child Alert. TBI asks that you keep an eye out for a 2012 white F-150 pickup. And if you see it, call 1-800-TBI-FIND. President Biden wants billions of dollars for Israel and Ukraine. An apparent brawl at a youth football game in Middle Tennessee. We'll tell you what decision police have come to. These stories and more at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
So I must admit to something, overnight was when I was on Red Eye Radio. I wasn't preparing for the next segments like I always do, and as any true professional would. What I was doing during the commercial breaks was listening to the new Rolling Stones album, Hackney Diamonds, that came out. Do you know that I actually, because I was here at midnight, and I was actually on my phone refreshing, waiting for that album to come out. And I don't ever do that.
Right.
This album is so good. And I've never really been a huge Rolling Stones fan. I liked them well enough.
Right.
But this is a really good album, Hackney Diamonds. And I don't do music reviews because I clearly have a tin ear from, many years of listening to myself in headphones. But I will tell you this, it's getting rave reviews. And you know what else they did last night? They played a secret New York City nightclub show with Lady Gaga.
That's cool.
At a place called The Racket in Chelsea.
Yeah.
I guess, whatever. Anyway, yeah. So a very small nightclub act, and they're getting rave reviews, not only on the album, but also on the show last night.
So the whole thing's out now?
You can listen to the whole thing.
Okay, cool.
And if you listen to it, let me know, Ken, what you think. It is really good. So it gets 10 stars from yours truly.
Awesome.
558. You know who did not get 10 stars? Joe Biden. Going to talk about him next at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes and an endangered child alert in Tennessee. Little 5-month-old baby boy missing in Marion County, just west of Chattanooga. The baby is white with blue eyes, blonde hair, and he may be with someone driving a 2012 white F-150. Tennessee tag BBT 9363. Authorities ask if you see that vehicle or know anything about the case. Call 1-800-TBI-FIND. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage.
Financial support for Israel and Ukraine. President Biden calling on Congress to approve both last night in a primetime address to the nation. $14 billion for Israel, another $60 billion for Ukraine as that country fights off Russia. The president says the money is necessary.
American alliances are what keep us, America, safe. American values are what make us a partner that other nations want to work with. To put all that at risk if we walk away from Ukraine, if we turn our backs on Israel, it's just not worth it.
There's also talk of a ground invasion from Israel into Gaza happening at any time, but Biden says any warfare on Israel's part must be measured.
I caution the government of Israel not to be blinded by rage. And here in America, let us not forget who we are. We reject all forms of hate, whether against Muslim, Jews, or anyone.
Almost 5,000 already killed on both sides of the conflict.
That's Derek Dennis reporting. In our nation's capital, Tennessee 7th District Congressman Mark Green posted reaction to the president's speech by saying the president's providing zero guarantee to ensure the $100 million for Gaza doesn't get into the hands of Hamas. Right now in Nashville, Metro Police say they are not going to file any charges in that parent brawl, an alleged gun threat that broke out at a youth football game in Jolton. A video on social media shows coaches and parents storming the field and coaches asking a father to leave. Witnesses say he came back and had a gun, threatened to shoot people, but police say the video they were provided does not show for sure that man had a gun. And now everyone involved says they do not want to file charges. So as a result of the fracas, organizers went ahead and canceled the rest of the 12-year-old football league season anyway. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Stocks tumbled on new worries about bonds. The Dow fell 251 points, the Nasdaq lost 128, and the S&P closed down 37. For the first time since 2007, the markets are facing the prospect of a 5% yield on a 10-year Treasury note. Stocks have been feeling pressure from the bond market since this summer as investors who are worried about a recession look to less risky investments. The Federal Reserve will also be paying close attention as it decides what to do about interest rates. Speaking of the Fed, Chair Jerome Powell told the Economic Club of New York its steps to bring down inflation, mainly by raising interest rates, are working, but there's still a ways from the 2% target rate. He says it's too early to say how many rate hikes may be necessary in the months to come. First-time jobless claims fell to their lowest level in 8 months. Economists consider these kind of claims a proxy for layoffs, and they say it's a sign hiring is strong.
All right, checking futures ahead of this morning's opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 87, S&P down 12, NASDAQ down 52. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:07 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in. Man, there is so much going on. Going to keep you updated with all the latest news. Good morning to you for a Friday. So, Joe Biden's speech on foreign policy. You know, when I watched it, I thought everything that he is saying is in direct contrast to what he has been doing for the last 3 years. And so one of the things that I'm saying here is, you know, they say that character is not what you do when people are watching, but what you do when people are not watching. So Joe Biden, to me, last night in his speech, put forward his desire to support Israel in front of the nation and the world. But in the years leading up to the attack a couple of weekends ago, we were paying all kinds of money, or at the very least allowing Iran to bring in all kinds of money by ignoring the sanctions placed on them by Donald Trump. And so his words are one thing. He was saying one thing, but his actions have been completely opposite to what he was saying last night. And so to me, you could say that Joe Biden is lying. You could just say that he is being deceitful. But whatever it is, he knows that he funded that attack when no one was looking. So this is part of what he said.
We're facing an inflection point in history. One of those moments where the decisions we make today are going to determine the future for decades to come.
Yeah, well, when I heard him say that, that was one of those moments where I paused it. And right there, that was in the first 20 seconds of the speech. He says, quote, where decisions we make today will determine the future for decades to come. Right. Well, the decisions that you made, Joe Biden, over the last 3 years has brought us right to where we are today. I mean, I couldn't, throughout the entire speech, the thread was, okay, but what about funding Iran? I mean, throughout the entire speech, that was the answer to almost everything that he said. So in this speech, he's demonizing Iran, yet his decision to embolden and enrich Iran through weak foreign policy and ignored sanctions on Iran, again, allowing them to bring in billions, funded this attack on Israel. So he's talking a big game. But in reality, the only thing that we know is that he helped facilitate these attacks. And let's talk about another decision of his. His decision to pull out of Afghanistan, you know, the way that he did. First announcing the date that we were leaving, and then pulling that, that disastrous pullout. It was horrific. Ultimately, as everyone knows, led to the deaths of 13 American military personnel. So the more that Joe Biden spoke, the more he, in my opinion, he was digging his own hole. We could also talk about, since he's speaking about how the decisions we make will determine the future for decades to come, okay, well, then we can also talk about funding Hamas directly with that $730 million to that organization that has been called an arm of Hamas. Remember, I've been telling you about this all week. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency that has literally been accused and has been proven that they were funding schools that teach anti-Semitism, anti-Israel rhetoric. They were literally caught shielding the weapons of Hamas and the terrorist fighters of Hamas. So somebody please tell me how Joe Biden, with his statement talking about how decisions we make today will determine the future for decades to come, well, the decisions that you've been making for the last several years determined the terrorist assault on Israel 2 weekends ago. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And so Biden spent all of 2 minutes talking about Israel. And then, of course, yes, he ended up pivoting to Ukraine.
You know, the assault on Israel echoes nearly 20 months of war, tragedy, and brutality inflicted on the people of Ukraine, people that were very badly hurt since Putin launched his all-out invasion. We've not forgotten the mass graves, the bodies found bearing signs of torture, rape used as a weapon by the Russians, and thousands of Ukrainian children forcibly taken into Russia, stolen from their parents. It's sick.
It is sick, and no one's denying that. That is, of course, Biden setting up his pitch for roughly $60 billion specifically for Ukraine. Now, hearing Biden talk about the brutality of Vladimir Putin, no one is denying that he is a criminal. He is literally a war criminal. But the issue is that we have been dealing with this for over a year, well over a year. I think is it 2 years yet with Ukraine? But the bottom line is we're funding a never-ending war. They're apparently, according to Joe Biden and a lot of these other folks that are out there analyzing what's going on in Ukraine, there really is no end. Because if you ask the president, he'll say for as long as it takes. I was reading something yesterday where they're talking about how this could go on for another 20 years.
Well, and it just seems like Russia can just every now and then fire a couple of missiles and murder some people in an apartment complex and get away with it.
Well, that's exactly right, Ken.
And because, like you said, there just doesn't seem to be any plan.
And that's the whole point.
For how this thing's going to end.
I got into it with a guy on Red Eye in the first hour where he was like, he was so sanctimonious. I am appalled. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Oh, my God, you want Vladimir Putin to win. And I'm like, when did I say that I want Vladimir Putin to win? I want Vladimir Putin to lose. The only way to do that is with a plan. And it turned out the guy didn't know diddly or squat about what the hell he was talking about, because he said the only thing we're spending money on in Ukraine is military. And Ken, you've never hosted, Johnny, you have. So you know that moment when there's a caller who believes that they got you, but then you realize, no, the caller just stepped in it? He totally stepped in it. Yeah. It was like, no. And I went through all of the things that we're paying for within Ukraine. Yeah, we're spending military, but then I told them to get informed because we're also paying to basically keep the country of Ukraine afloat. We're covering their budget deficits. We're paying their citizens money. Mm-hmm. We're helping them with business loans. I mean, we're paying for pensions.
Infrastructure repair, which Russia just keeps. Well, they fix it, then Russia just destroys it again.
That's exactly right. So, bottom line is Joe Biden, whole speech last night was really, and this is part of what people are saying about that speech last night. People are ticked off. And the reason why people are ticked is because Biden was supposed to come out and talk about Israel. But what he talked about, and I told you this was going to happen yesterday, he talked about Israel and Ukraine, tying these two things together into one big balloon package. So if you feel compelled, and if I was a lawmaker, I would, if you feel compelled to vote for Ukraine or for Israel funding, then you have to vote yes. But the problem is that with that Israel funding, you've also got $60 billion that comes with it with funding for Ukraine. So they've made basically, the politicians and everybody that is in Washington, D.C. will complain about these omnibus spending bills where everything is rolled into one. Well, that's what they've done with this foreign policy package. They've got, I think, $15 billion for Israel, $60 billion for Ukraine, and you can't separate the two out. And then they've got some money in there for Taiwan as well. It is an embarrassment because it's effectively $100 billion worth of funding. And once again, we can't ask any questions about an end game for Ukraine. You've just got to, if you want to help Israel, you've got to suck it up and deal with the $60 billion for Ukraine. And that is what's wrong with Washington, D.C. 6:17, running late on Super Talk. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. 6:17 on Nashville's Morning News. Partly cloudy today, a high of 70, sunny this weekend. A high on Saturday, 79. High on Sunday, 69, 61 degrees now at Super Talk 99.7 at WTN. So, yeah, Biden is trying to tie these two events together and throwing in, by the way, China and Taiwan as well. There's clear differences between Israel and Ukraine. The two situations are completely different. I'm going to delve into that more deeply at 6:35, and then also at 6:35 in that hour, in that half hour, can also talk about some polling that is out there on Donald Trump and Joe Biden. But I want to get to some more of this audio from the president talking last night, and he had a thing or two to say about reflection, and he talked about what we've done in the past regarding Israel and what we need to do, he says, moving forward.
You know, history has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death and more destruction. They keep going, and the cost and the threats to America and the world keep rising.
Right. So I'm going to play that first part one more time.
You know, history has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death.
Right. Okay. So when he said that, I paused the TV and I said, wait a minute. Well, my question would be, what price did Iran pay? Because everybody knows they are the world's number one nation for state-sponsored terrorism. So what price did Iran pay? Because Joe Biden looked the other way on those sanctions, and they were able to bring in tens of billions of dollars. So in other words, he is right. He knows that when you don't punish the terrorists, then they continue to do what they do. Well, dude, you gave them access to billions of dollars. I mean, come on, man. So you know what the thing is? Biden made it really easy. He made it really easy to just, shoot holes right through almost every single statement that he made. Now, Donald Trump, we all know what Trump did. He killed one of their leaders, Qasem Soleimani. He placed and enforced sanctions on Iran, cost them billions of dollars. Trump was making them pay a price. Joe Biden, you came along, you reversed all that. And now we have an emboldened Iran that is stronger than ever. And yes, they are funding terrorism with Hamas and also Hezbollah. So Biden, the things that he said, complete contradiction to the way that he has been running the country as the leader of the free world for the last 3 years. He is talking about trying to make Iran weaker when in reality, he is the one that made them stronger, and Israel has paid the price. Got a lot more straight ahead. So many of us deal with sports injuries like concussions, even Lou Gehrig's disease and autism. Well, there's good news now, my friends. Whether it is you or a loved one suffering, there's now a cutting-edge treatment available for you from the Kellum Stem Cell Institute. Dr. Ethan Kellum specializes in the harvesting of and then redeploying of your own stem cells to attack inflammation in your body to help it heal. This is your body providing your cells and your solutions, and Dr. Ethan Kellum can help you today. Now, Dr. Kellum has been named as an official doctor for the Tennessee Titans. He can definitely help you. Now, they can store your cells indefinitely so that you can use them when you need them. Dr. Kellum and his staff can also help you with congestive heart failure and lung issues too. From asthma to arthritis, they can help you today, and they do now accept care credit. So call them today and tell them Dan told you to reach out if you would. 615-850-4415, 615-850-4415. Call today for your free consultation, KELLUM, the Kellum Stem Cell Institute.com.
One of the big words being thrown around in the investing world right now is this one. You may have heard it. Fiduciary. The idea that the investment advisor has to keep your interest first when they give advice. Now, it's being used in a marketing sense right now, and one of the things that I found fascinating, there was a study by the University of Southern California and Indiana University. They looked at investment advisor portfolios and they found that they were making basic academic mistakes in the management of their own portfolios. And the question that they asked was, if they can't even keep their own best interest first, how are they going to keep your best interest first? That was the question. Now, one of the things that we do at Paul Winkler Inc. is every one of our offices, 10 offices, is run by a degreed planner, number one. But we go way beyond the call of duty when it comes to fiduciary and making sure that we're using academically sound principles in investing. Evidence-based. In other words, it's backed by a lot of this is backed by Nobel Prize winning research. To learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
If you need a lawn mower, furniture, or appliances, the first stop you need to make, my friends at DT McCall's, either online or in person. I've been shopping with these folks for years. Just go to their website at dtmccalls.com and check out their incredible selection of everything. Now, if you buy something online like I did, DT McCall's will deliver it for free and haul away the old stuff. And also at DT McCall's, the price on the tag is always the price. They don't try and sneak in additional charges. Now, I've been talking about DT McCall's for a long time, and I discuss their Middle Tennessee values. They've been here in the volunteer state for nearly 100 years, treating people right and doing what's right, offering great products at fair prices. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. If you need something for the house this weekend, stop by one of their 5 locations: Carthage, Cookeville, Lebanon, Lafayette, and Franklin. Always online, dtmccalls.com.
Endangered child alert in Tennessee. Be on the lookout for a 2012 white F-150. Tennessee plates BBT 9363. Call 1-800-TBI-FIND if you see it. Israel setting up hospitals near the border with Gaza, supplying them ahead of what's expected to be a long and bloody campaign to end Hamas. These stories and more at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
So what time is it, Ken? It's 6:20. Well, it's 6:26 now, but I got my first You're an A-hole at 6:23 this morning.
Goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that earlier than usual, or?
It's actually a little late.
A little late, huh?
Yeah, some of you people are sleeping in, apparently. 7882, you know what he said? He said, "You're an a-hole, Dan, a little man with a big mouth." So you know what I said to him? You know what I typed back?
What?
"Little man, thank you. I've been working out. Does it show?" Anyway, 628. I thought that was funny. On Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7.
You get it, Brother Dan.
I like to kill him with kindness, Ken.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do. Although I don't really want to kill anybody, but yeah. So because people like that, they feed off of anger. And so if I'm just nice to him back, or if I'm sarcastic back, then it just, you know what it's like? It's like, "You going to hit me now?" That's kind of what it's like.
Pulling an Amy on them.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
All right. Now, coming up next, I've got a couple of more audio bites from Joe Biden and his speech last night. A lot of people are talking about the way Joe Biden, he betrayed the world last night, because he said that he was going to talk about Israel and Israel funding, but really it was all about Ukraine. And coming up next, I'm going to, play another couple of sound bites from Biden last night. Was not impressive. But what I'm going to focus on is the obvious differences, and maybe some not so obvious, but the differences between the situation with Israel and also Ukraine. That is straight ahead on Nashville's Morning News. Also some great polling from for Donald Trump. Not so good for Joe Biden. That story for you as well. Straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7. By the way, also the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, says the majority of hostages in Gaza are alive. And also we were talking earlier, just to keep Ken and I keeping you updated on all the latest in Israel. They also have given in Israel, they have given the IDF permission now, official permission, to go into Gaza. So we'll continue to cover the events in Israel and Gaza for you as they develop all day long here on Super Talk 99.7. Your home is a big investment. USS is here to protect it. Now, these are the folks that I turn to anytime I have a problem. I call the experts in waterproofing, foundation repair, and concrete leveling, to name just a few. Now, these folks have been helping customers for years. They've got 25,000 100% satisfied clients, including me. They arrive at your house as problem solvers. They want to figure out what the problem is and then fix it. And by the way, communicate with you along the way. So if you have issues with concrete lifting, foundation repair, basement and crawl space waterproofing, and so much more, they can help you today. USS has been helping Tennesseans since 1994. We guarantee our best. Call USS at 615-488-7855, 615-488-7855, USSTN.com. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out.
6:30 on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Endangered child alert in Tennessee. A little 5-month-old baby boy is missing in Marion County, just west of Chattanooga. The baby is white with blue eyes, blonde hair, and he may be with someone driving a 2012 white F-150 with Tennessee tag BBT 9363. Authorities ask if you see that vehicle or know anything about the case. You're asked to call 1-800-TBI-FIND. Israel-Hamas war, continuing coverage. Here's Richard Cantu.
Israel continues its aerial bombardment of Gaza. The invasion is soon to follow.
Israel's defense minister told his troops they will soon see Gaza from the inside, suggesting a ground offensive is imminent. Satellite images show hundreds of Israeli tanks and armored vehicles north of Gaza. A source says Israel is preparing for a long war with many casualties. One reason for the delayed ground invasion: Israel is setting up hospitals waiting for more medical supplies.
ABC's Andrew Dimbert.
We cannot and will not let terrorists like Hamas and tyrants like Putin win.
President Biden making a rare Oval Office address to the nation, reporting on his trip to Israel.
History has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death and more destruction.
The administration wants Congress to approve $105 billion, mainly for Ukraine and Israel defense.
All right. Tennessee's congressional delegations reacting to the president's Oval Office speech last night. Senior U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn saying it was a weak speech and that Biden failed to hold Iran accountable. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. Genetics, stress, hormones, aging, all natural and inevitable factors that lead to hair loss. Now, fortunately, there is a proven way to reverse common and even rare patterns of balding. Using groundbreaking technology, Advanced Hair's simple one-day solution can help regrow your own natural hair, even in those places where it's disappeared for years, and it works for both men and women across all ages. Advanced Hair's breakthrough technology and top-rated physicians have improved tens of thousands of lives, but time is of the essence. Hair loss from natural factors can eventually reach a point of no return. So schedule your free consultation today and find out if you qualify for $500 off. Call them, tell them Dan told you to reach out, 629-348-HAIR, 629-348-HAIR. Listen, we might not be able to prevent all the causes of hair loss, but you can regrow your own natural hair with Advanced Hair. One-day treatment, life-changing results. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. 629-348-HAIR or advancedhair.com, 629-348-HAIR. Hey everybody, Dan Mandis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission. 637 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Just going through some of the tweets and some of the articles on Joe Biden's speech last night. And it really doesn't look like President Biden impressed a whole lot of folks. Some people, namely Brit Hume, and I was kind of surprised by this, kind of felt sorry for Brit Hume over on Fox News, as a matter of fact, because he went first in the panel. And he said, yeah, I thought it was a very strong speech by President Biden. Then you had Dana Perino and a couple of other people come up from behind and come up after Brit Hume. And they just said, oh, it was a terrible speech. He was weak and this, that, and the other. And Brit Hume was like the outlier. He's like, well, I thought he was okay. And everybody else thought that Joe Biden on the panel was not very good. If I was on that panel, I would have said that Joe Biden not only was it a terrible speech, but it was also deceptive because he told the world that he was going to talk about Israel, and most of the time he was spent talking about Ukraine. As a matter of fact, J.D. Vance, the Ohio congressman, I believe, is a congressman or senator. I think he's a congressman. But J.D. Vance tweeted out that he made the leap, and I guess it's a legit comment. He said Joe Biden is disgusting because he's using dead children to sell his funding for Ukraine. And that actually is a pretty spicy take because that is what Joe Biden did. And ultimately what he's going to do, as I've been telling you, he's going to group the two together. Here's a little bit more from Joe Biden. And he spoke about quite a bit, of course, Vladimir Putin. This is a part of last night's speech.
Putin's already threatened to remind Poland that their Western land was a gift from Russia. One of his top advisors, a former president of Russia, has called Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania Russia's Baltic provinces. These are all NATO allies. For 75 years, NATO has kept peace in Europe and has been the cornerstone of American security. And if Putin attacks a NATO ally, we will defend every inch of NATO which the treaty requires and calls for. We'll have something that we do not seek. Make it clear, we do not seek. We do not seek to have American troops fighting in Russia or fighting against Russia.
I think that last part was people are saying that he was fighting with the teleprompter. The teleprompter won again. The problem, though, with that statement is that Vladimir Putin hasn't invaded a NATO ally. I understand he's a bad guy, and I would love to see, the only good Vladimir Putin is a dead Vladimir Putin. I'm no fan of his whatsoever. But here's the thing, is that Ukraine isn't in NATO. And so when in that soundbite he's talking about NATO and Vladimir Putin threatening Poland and some of those other nations. Well, those are all NATO nations. Ukraine is not a NATO nation. And as a matter of fact, when Ukraine and Zelensky is out there demanding to be put in NATO, Joe Biden has said no. Remember that Russia went into Ukraine because they saw weakness in Joe Biden. Biden emboldened Vladimir Putin. We had the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan, and it was like, okay, game on for China, game on for Russia. And that is exactly what happened. So I understand what Biden is trying to do. He's trying to use the horrors of what is going on in Ukraine, as far as he was mentioning in the speech last night, the absolutely brutal tactics of Vladimir Putin. And I understand that. All that can be true, and it is also still true that we have absolutely no game plan whatsoever. And as I've been saying for, well over a year now, a blank check policy is not a foreign policy. That's not the right way to go. And so Biden, ultimately what he's doing is he's trying to really give Congress no choice. He knows that the $60 billion would not pass on its own. He knows that. $60 billion for Ukraine. A lot of the Republicans that are out there right now on Capitol Hill, they would have serious reservations about that, and they would have a lot of questions. one of the things that's going on is if you even, and this is part of what I experienced last night, if you even ask questions about Ukraine, and then I'm going to move on, but if you even ask a question or make a statement like, okay, so what's the game plan? If we're going to give them $60 billion, well, then what's after that? What are you going to use the $60 billion for? And is this going to be the last $60 billion? Because I was reading last night, there's some experts out there saying that this could last another 10 to 15 to 20 years. In that case, okay, so is this going to be $60 billion every single year? Adjusted for inflation, no doubt. And so, yeah, it's a problem. And so you can be two things at once. And this is what people don't seem to understand. You can say, you know what? Where's this money going? And I want some accountability. And what's the end game? And you can also want Vladimir Putin dead. But these days, if you ask a question about where the money's going and so forth, well, then you're automatically, Putin's puppet, and you want, all of the Ukrainian children dead. I mean, that's the way that, people are treated when they're asking simple questions regarding accountability and an end game. So just to be clear, Trump was going to tweet us into World War III. Everybody remember that? Trump was going to tweet us into World War III. But in reality, with Joe Biden at the helm, Russia invades Ukraine in what could be a two-decade conflict. Hamas attacks Israel in a brazen attack with weapons paid for by Joe Biden, ultimately, by looking the other way at the sanctions. And China's and their threats against Taiwan continue to escalate as well. What emboldened China? Joe Biden, and again, his disastrous pullout of Afghanistan. So I love when you have all these folks out there saying that, Donald Trump, he was a disaster regarding foreign policy. He was going to tweet and bumble us into World War III. We are closer to World War III now than Donald Trump ever got us, courtesy of Joe Biden. It is 6:45, time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. 6:45 on Nashville's Morning News. As far as your weekend goes, partly cloudy today. High of 70, a sunny weekend ahead. High on Saturday, 79. High on Sunday, 69. 58 degrees now at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken, I'm not sure if you announced this in your last newscast. I'm seeing that Jim Jordan is going to be holding a press conference very soon.
Okay.
Ahead of the speaker vote. What do you think is going to happen? You think he's going to bow out?
I don't know, because apparently he tried to pause, and that backfired because nobody supported the speaker pro tem.
Mm-hmm.
And so he, I guess, tried another round. Now they're looking to do another round today.
Yep.
He does not strike me as somebody who would bow out.
Well, you did you see what happened yesterday? So yesterday, you have this photograph of Jim Jordan walking out of a conference room, and he's really ticked. I mean, you can tell that he's angry. And he's got a piece of paper in his hand, and the media, of course, are all over this because this is a storyline that makes Republicans look bad. And in his piece of paper, on that piece of paper that's in his hand, he had written down, "What's the real reason? What's the real reason?" Because apparently all those Republicans that told Jim Jordan that they wouldn't vote for him, they're not backing down. they're not saying that they're going to change their mind. Whatever Jim Jordan is saying to these folks, they're not listening. And so coming up, by the way, in the 7 o'clock hour, probably about 7:06, I'm going to tell you the real reason why these congressmen will not be voting for Jim Jordan. The real reason I don't believe has anything to do with Jim Jordan himself, but I think now there's a big-time pressure campaign. It's interesting because there's been a big-time pressure campaign on these Congress people who are not voting to support Jim Jordan for Speaker. There's been a big pressure campaign on them. Well, now there's a turning of the tables, and the pressure campaign is on Jordan to drop out. And so I've got a whole big presentation for you coming up after the news at 7 here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So Biden, just very quickly, because I'm tired of this already. But as far as the president goes, people are trying to say, well, it's Ukraine and Israel. What's the difference? And I've been talking about the differences since this whole debate began. You can't even remotely compare the situation with Ukraine and the situation with Israel. And so I'm just going to go through this yet again. One of the things that you would say about Israel is they already have a very good existing military. And so they're already very, very strong, incredibly strong, even without us. That's number one. Number two, Israel is a long-standing ally, long-time ally. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. That is important. They're not nearly as corrupt as Ukraine is. And it's my opinion that they'll be able to make quick work out of this war. I do believe that. Now let's talk about Ukraine. It feels a little like they're, Johnny-come-lately-ish. That's number one. Number two, Ukraine, they only asked for, Israel only asked for, $10 billion. Ukraine is out there always with their hand out, always demanding more, more, more. This time it's $60 billion. So Israel asks for 10, Ukraine asks for 60. And that's only from us. Because remember when he went on that, Give Me More Money tour a few weeks ago, and he shows up in Canada, and he went to other countries, if I'm not mistaken. He went to other countries as well, and it basically was the Give Me More Money tour. And yes, Ukraine remains incredibly corrupt. And as far as whether or not this is going to be a quick war, remember I said Israel, it's my opinion that this is going to be a very quick war if we allow Israel to do what they want. Ukraine, they're talking about this thing being a 10, 15, 20-year war. So no, there is a big difference between Israel and Ukraine. Anybody who tries to tell you anything different, they're lying to you. It is 6:50 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Dan Mandis here with a question for you. If your roof was destroyed in a storm, how much of that replacement cost would your insurance company cover? Now, if you don't know, you need to ask because some insurance companies refuse to pay full replacement cost. They'll deduct money for an older roof. Now, this means that the insurance company will depreciate how much they pay for your roof claim. That could leave you on the hook for thousands of dollars. Now, my friends at King & Associates Insurance, they will pay full replacement cost. So whether you have to replace a 10-year-old roof or a 2-year-old roof, they pay for it to be replaced, period. It is that kind of focus on customer service that makes King & Associates Insurance one of the best insurance companies around. So call them and tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out, 615-329-8121, 615-329-8121. Get your royal review at tkinginsurance.com. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Listen, fall is here. That means winter is next. And you need to make sure that your home's heater is working and working well. Do what I did. It's been 10 years now, friends. Become a Beehive member and ensure that you are running at peak efficiency for maximum comfort. Now, if your heater does break down, Beehive members like me get front-of-the-line service. So when hundreds, maybe thousands of homes are without heat, you get serviced first. Becoming a Beehive member also means that you get 3 thorough maintenance services a year, including plumbing, plus no overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off of all repairs. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, busybeehvac.com.
Endangered child alert out of the Chattanooga area. Authorities asking everyone be on the lookout for a 2012 white F-150 with Tennessee tag BBT 9363. And if you see it, call 1-800-TBI-FIND. Israel setting up hospitals near the border with Gaza. And rent keeps going up in Nashville. What might slow it down? These stories and more at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6:55, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I apologize, Ken and Johnny. I was speaking, frankly, to someone far cooler than you two.
Oh.
Kenny Smooth.
Oh, brother, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's far cooler
Kenny
than
Smooth,
anybody.
man.
Well, at least you guys, accept that, admit that.
Well, yeah, he's the coolest dude in the building.
He is the coolest guy in the building.
He is. So lots going on. By the way, JT sends a note. You ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what no one is talking about while Joe bloviates on a ridiculous connection between Ukraine and Israel and the House can't find a leader? 1, the Biden crime family. Number 2, open borders. And number 3, the explosion of crime here in our own country. Focus, guys, focus.
Focus.
JT, I've got a segment just for you coming up in the 7 o'clock hour straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
7 o'clock on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. We'll get to the Israel-Hamas conflict in a moment, but right now, looks like Congressman Jim Jordan is preparing to hold a news conference on the ongoing situation with not being able to elect a House Speaker. We'll get you those highlights from his news conference once that thing starts rolling. I can tell you right now, the podium is set up. The reporters are sitting down, just waiting for Mr. Jordan to appear.
Hey, you know what, Ken? I hate to interrupt you, but if he goes, you want to try and take it live?
Absolutely. I'm sitting here monitoring it right now.
Okay.
So in the middle of my newscast, if it happens, I'll quickly switch over.
All right.
Endangered child alert in Tennessee. A little 5-month-old baby boy missing in Marion County, just west of Chattanooga. The baby is white with blue eyes and blonde hair, and he may be with someone driving a 2012 white F-150 with Tennessee tag BBT 9363. Authorities ask if you see that vehicle or know anything about the case. Call 1-800-TBI-FIND. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage.
War in the Middle East and between Russia and Ukraine, the focus of President Biden's primetime speech to the nation last night.
President Biden comforting the nation and standing firmly with Israel and Ukraine as he pushes forward with an aid request to Congress to help both of those nations at war.
If we walk away from Ukraine, if we turn our backs on Israel, it's just not worth it.
Biden announcing that he will request $105 billion in aid from Congress, $60 billion for Ukraine and $14 billion for Israel, describing the generational impact it will have.
It's a smart investment that's going to pay dividends for American security for generations.
ABC's Liz Landers. Meantime, truckloads of humanitarian aid being held up at the Gaza border with Egypt. President Biden brokered the transfer during his trip to Israel this week, but roads need to be repaired, and there's talk of an imminent Israeli ground invasion into Gaza.
That's Derek Dennis reporting. Meanwhile, Tennessee's congressional delegation reacting to President Biden's Oval Office speech last night. Senior U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn says it was weak and that Biden failed to hold Iran accountable. Elsewhere in our nation's capital, again, Congressman Jim Jordan vowing to take his bid for House Speaker back to the floor for a third round of voting today. However, this is late breaking. Congressman Jordan set to give some comments, going to hold a press conference, which we will carry live once he steps up to the podium right now. Looking at the room there, the reporters are sitting down, which is an indication that the speaker designate is ready to come and give his comments, and we'll figure out what's going to go on today with the race or the effort to try to seat a speaker. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Ahead of the opening bell this morning, Dow futures down 75, S&P down 8, NASDAQ down 34. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
.04. We'll continue that commercial later. Jim Jordan apparently is about to speak, right, Ken?
The gadgets and gizmos they tinkered with and built. Fascinating tour. Last stop on the tour is Orville Wright's bedroom. And they tell you a few more things about this particular Wright brother. And then they close the tour out by showing you two pictures. First picture they hold up, that very first flight, 1903, in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, in this thing they called a plane. And you first thought you'd see that and you think, how did that thing get off the ground? And the truth is it barely did. It flew like 100 feet, got a few feet off the ground, And you're thinking about that, and you sort of remember that picture from 8th grade, 9th grade, whenever they teach you that in school. And I thought, well, that's amazing. They put that picture down, and then they hold up a second picture. 44 years later, 1947, Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier in a jet. And I was like, wow, that I didn't know. That's amazing. And 44 years we go from two guys flying 100 feet to another American breaking the sound barrier in a jet. And literally, that was the end of the tour. They put that picture down, and Polly and I start walking out. And as we're walking out that door, it hit me. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why did they stop there? I represent Wapakoneta, Ohio, Auglaize County, Ohio, hometown of Neil Armstrong, who 22 years after Chuck Yeager breaks the sound barrier, steps on the moon. Stop and think about it. In 66 years, one lifetime, we went from two guys flying 100 feet to putting a man on the moon. It is a great country, the greatest country in my judgment, made up of great people. And right now, those people, I think, are starting to doubt and wonder about their government and about where our nation is headed. They see an open border. They see crime in the streets. They know what it costs to put gas in their car. They know what it costs to put food on the table. They see a war in Israel, our strongest ally, Israel, and what's happening there, and the help that Israel needs. And they see a government that's been weaponized against we, the people. The very government that's supposed to serve us has been turned on the taxpayers who pay for it. I think the American people are thirsty for change. I think they are hungry for leadership. And frankly, they know that the White House can't provide it. They know the Senate won't lead. And they are looking for House Republicans to step up and lead and make change on these important issues. We got important work to do. Important work to do. We need to help Israel. We need to get the appropriations process moving so that the key elements of our government are funded and funded in the right way, particularly our military. We need to get back to our committee work. And frankly, we need to continue the oversight work that I think is so darn important. In short, we need to get to work for the American people. We need to do what we said we were going to do. We need to do what we told them we were going to do when they elected us and put us in office. And frankly, we can't do that if the House isn't open. And if we can't open the House until we get a speaker. My favorite scripture verse is 2 Timothy 4:7. Paul's the old guy giving advice to the young guy Timothy. And he says, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. And I tell folks, I love that verse because of the action in it. Because of the word. Americans aren't timid folks. They're people of action. And the words in that verse, fight, finish, keep, I think fit the American spirit. Americans expect their government to fight for them. They expect us to finish our work. And they expect us to keep faith with the principles and values that made us the greatest nation ever. Made us the nation that could go from the Wright brothers to Neil Armstrong. That's what we have to keep in mind. And that's the kind of attitude I think we got to have. The quickest way to get all this working is to get a speaker elected. That's what I hope we can do today. I'll take your questions.
Good morning. So lay out your path. Are you just going to call roll call vote after roll call vote today and tomorrow and into the weekend and try to wear your opponents down? Because it didn't seem like you made any progress yesterday.
Well, you all said that we were going to lose between the first vote and the second vote. You all said we were going to lose 10 to 15 votes. We stayed the same. We picked up a few. We lost a few. I think the ones we lost can come back. So, look, there's been multiple rounds of votes for speaker before. We all know that. I just know that we need to get a speaker as soon as possible so we can get to work for the American people.
Thank you, Congressman. So just to be clear, do you plan to grind this out this weekend if you don't get the votes today? And then secondly, President Biden, as we heard last night, is sending a $100 billion foreign aid package here to Congress. Is that something that
you're making the case for why we need to get the House open so we can evaluate the package. We can't do that. Can't vote on that. Can't pass anything in that. Until we get the House open. So I got to see the package, but we certainly need to help Israel. But I got to see the package. But again, we can't do that if the House isn't open. All the more reason why we need to get the House open as soon as possible.
Mr. Jordan, What do you say to the people of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, that you're not able to provide aid to Israel because the House is so blocked up?
Again, I think you're making my case. I got 200 votes, the speaker designee from my colleagues. The sooner we can get this accomplished, the better for the American people who expect us to work for them and for our friends and allies like the great state of Israel.
In your conversation with members yesterday, were you able to get any of the ones who didn't support you previously to pledge to you that they would switch their votes for you?
We had a good conversation, and we'll continue to do that. But as I point out, the fastest way to get to work for the American people is to elect a speaker, so the House can be open and we can get things done. I'll take a couple more.
The 2020 election and your view on that. So I'm going to ask you two related questions. One, what was your intent when you emailed a memo to the Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, suggesting that Vice President Pence...
Just that. I think there were all kinds of problems with the 2020 election. I've been clear about that. My intention in forwarding the email was an argument made by former Inspector General for Donald Rumsfeld, accomplished lawyer who laid out an argument from the Federalist Papers. I forwarded it on to them. That was all it was.
Can you walk through what is your plan this weekend? If you pick up any votes on the third ballot or if you lose votes on the third ballot?
Our plan this weekend is to get a speaker elected to the House of Representatives as soon as possible so we can help the American people. Last one.
What is your message for the people of Israel about
wasting
everyone's time when you clearly don't have the votes to be speaker?
We stand with Israel. I've been there 5 times. Amazing people, amazing country, and we should do everything we can to help them. The quickest way to do that is to elect a speaker. Thank you all very much.
All right, so that's Jim Jordan. So, Ken, I half expected him to announce that he was dropping out because, as I said before the news, he was under a great amount of stress to do that. The story yesterday, 7-Eleven, Nashville's Morning News, that was Jim Jordan live. And basically, he can go down one of 2 different roads. He can drop out in his quest for the speakership, or he can continue on and perhaps go 15 rounds. And so I didn't really know what he was going to announce. But what happened yesterday was there was a meeting with Jim Jordan and all of these Republicans, the moderates, all of these moderate Republicans who don't want him to be speaker. And he was walking out of the room. And, of course, they photographed him. And apparently the meeting did not go well. By all accounts, the meeting did not go well. And I guess he looked angry. And as he was clutching a piece of paper, the piece of paper read, "What's the real reason?" And I can only assume that when he wrote down, what is the real reason why these folks refused to vote for Jim Jordan? Because let me tell you something. Even that press conference, I don't know about you, Ken, but even in that press conference, he is a leader and he's rolling up his sleeves and he is ready to get to work. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I can hear how much more effective and impactful he would be than Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, he's not singing when he talks.
And so for, Jim Jordan, he's trying to figure out when he had written down on that piece of paper, what's the real reason? He's trying to figure out, is it because of, the last couple of days I've been talking about this, where you have folks that are saying it's because of the tenaciousness of his supporters who have been calling into the offices of these moderate Republicans who refuse to confirm him, who refuse to vote for him as speaker. And so apparently what's been going on is you've got the folks that are supportive of Jim Jordan, and his supporters are being, they're rallying the troops. Jordan's supporters are rallying the troops. And so the troops are calling into the moderate Republican offices who are saying they're not going to support Jordan, and they're giving them what for. And by the way, some people are saying that, the way that the Jim Jordan supporters are acting, which is, again, very passionately and tenaciously, well, isn't that a nice change from folks that are just don't care? I mean, this is the people that are calling the moderate Republicans You know what we call those folks? We the people. And we the people are pissed. And we the people understand that Jim Jordan is a guy that is supported by Donald Trump. And you know who's leading by a wide, wide margin in the Republican primary? Donald Trump. And so if you're going to go by, you know, brand of politics or style of politics or, you know, moderate versus conservative, well, just look at how much Jim Jordan is supported. And I can tell you that he's supported, I would say, by the vast majority of Republicans. How do I know that? Because the vast majority of Republicans support Donald Trump, and Jim Jordan has the endorsement of Donald Trump. And if you look at Donald Trump and his policies and his style, it's a lot like Jim Jordan. So, yes, I can tell you that the moderate Republicans, who I'm just going to tell you, I'm a little pissed at them right now because they know, I'm going to say it this way, those moderate Republicans, if they read the tea leaves of the Republican Party, they know who Republicans want to be the Speaker of the House. And they're getting an earful, and all they've got to do is read any number of polls that are out there. But they're ignoring the people of America. What were you saying, Ken?
I noticed there are a couple of things that stuck out to me in his press conference there. Notice he said this weekend the goal is to elect a speaker. So his intention is that everybody stays in Washington and they vote.
Mm-hmm.
He also said that it's time to get back to the work of the people, protect Israel, continue oversight. There was no mention of Ukraine in that statement.
Yes, because Jim Jordan has been decidedly anti-Ukraine, and the moderates, they are very much for the funding of Ukraine, the continued unaccountable funding for, no questions asked, funding for Ukraine.
But so what our delegation has been saying, specifically Congressman Ogles and Tim Burchett, is that we need to be here until 2 o'clock in the morning and get back at 6 o'clock in the morning until the speaker is elected.
And you know what else I would say, because you're right, is he wanted to get his message out. He wanted to get his message out to the American people and say, this is what is at stake. And he talked about Israel and some other things as well. So I think it was really smart for Jim Jordan. I think part of what he was doing was it's a message to the Senate. It's a message to the moderates. It's a message to everyone involved in this that, yes, his sleeves are going to be rolled up and he is ready to get to work. And I love that. And when he wrote down what is the real reason, is it the funding for Ukraine and that's why they don't want him as speaker? Is it because of the tactics of the supporters that have been calling the moderates and, they've been, passionate to say the least. Some say that they've been threatening. And we know, by the way, how this works, right, folks? So in other words, if one person called up and made some sort of a threat, because that's what the story is, maybe I'll share it. One person said that they were threatened, others physically, others say that they were threatened with a primary. But here's the thing. That's all, unacceptable. Death threats, obviously unacceptable. It's not unacceptable to threaten to primary somebody. That is acceptable because that's part of Washington, D.C. But, okay, so one person makes a death threat. What about the thousands or millions of others that want Jim Jordan, a more conservative speaker? What about those folks? Now, from a pragmatic standpoint, and this is part of the discussion, you've got, and I've been talking about this, you've got about, is it 20? I've got it written down somewhere, but I think there's about 17. There's 17 Republicans that are in territories or districts that Joe Biden won. And so the worry is that if they vote for Jim Jordan, an election denier, put that in air quotes, that Jim Jordan, if he is elected speaker, then those moderates in Joe Biden districts, they will be held accountable for voting for Jim Jordan. And they don't want to lose their next election by voting for, air quote, an election denier. So that's also part of the dynamic. And so I think heading into this weekend, there's a number of things that they need to consider, and we'll get into that straight ahead on Nashville's Morning News. We are way off clock, Johnny, so what do you want to do? You want to do some traffic? You want me to do a live commercial? What do you want me to do? Let's talk about Griffith Law at 7:20 on Nashville's Morning News. When you're looking for a personal injury attorney, it can be stressful at an already stressful time, which is why I do endorse John Griffith. Now, you know, John was honored as the Outstanding Trial Lawyer of the Year here in the state of Tennessee a few years back, and it's because of that and some other reasons as well why I do endorse John Griffith. You talk to the people that he has represented, and they say glowing things about John Griffith. How many people have good things to say about their personal injury attorneys? Just ask folks about John Griffith. I mean, his clients have nothing but great things to say. Now, you may not need a personal injury attorney now. You may not need one tomorrow, but you may need one at some point in your life. I want you to consider John Griffith. And if something bad happens to you and you need a personal injury attorney and you don't remember who the guy was that I endorse, just send me a note, send me an email, send me a private message on Twitter, whatever. But John Griffith is the guy for you. So call him, 615-807-7900, 615-807-7900 for personal injury attorney John Griffith. You can find him online. It's griffithinjurylaw.com.
One of the big words being thrown around in the investing world right now is this one. You may have heard it. Fiduciary. The idea that the investment advisor has to keep your interest first when they give advice. Now, it's being used in a marketing sense right now, and one of the things that I found fascinating, there was a study by the University of Southern California and Indiana University. They looked at investment advisor portfolios and they found that they were making basic academic mistakes in the management of their own portfolios. And the question that they asked was, if they can't even keep their own best interest first, how are they going to keep your best interest first? That was the question. Now, one of the things that we do at Paul Winkler Inc. is every one of our offices, 10 offices, is run by a degreed planner, number one. But we go way beyond the call of duty when it comes to fiduciary and making sure that we're using academically sound principles in investing. Evidence-based. In other words, it's backed by a lot of this is backed by Nobel Prize winning research. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
Endangered child alert canceled. That baby boy has been found safe. Looks like it's going to be a busy, tense weekend in our nation's capital. We'll tell you what Jim Jordan just said in his press conference. Israel setting up hospitals near the border with Gaza. These stories and more at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, so I'm going to have the next segment. It's going to be like 15 different stories all in one segment. Because Jim Jordan's little press conference there where he basically told America he's going to continue down this road of trying to get the speakership threw me way off track as far as what I wanted to cover this morning. I do find it interesting, though. Yesterday, word is, he was told that under no circumstances with these moderates, they told him, under no circumstances, you can try to negotiate all you want. We will not vote for you. Yet he's continuing on. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$7:30 on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Again, that endangered child alert in Tennessee. Little 5-month-old baby boy who was missing from Marion County near Chattanooga has been found safe. So the endangered child alert is canceled. In our nation's capital, chaos in the House. Jim Jordan is staying in the race for speaker. He just gave a press conference saying the weekend plan is to elect a speaker.
We got important work to do. Important work to do. We need to help Israel. We need to get the appropriations process moving so that the key elements of our government are funded and funded in the right way, particularly our military. We need to get back to our committee work. And frankly, we need to continue the oversight work that I think is so darn important.
Notice he didn't include Ukraine. Continuing coverage, Israel-Hamas war.
New Israeli airstrikes into Gaza this morning, including areas in the south that were considered safe zones for Palestinians. And not to be outdone, the militant group Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed ally of Hamas, has been firing rockets back into Israel. President Biden, in a nationwide speech last night, calling on Congress to approve $14 billion in aid for Israel and another $60 billion for Ukraine as that country fights off Russia.
We cannot and will not let terrorists like Hamas and tyrants like Putin win. I refuse to let that happen. In moments like these, we have to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. The United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity.
Of course, the back-and-forth strikes come nearly 3 weeks after the surprise Hamas attack on Israel. Many believe an Israeli ground invasion into Gaza is imminent, with nearly 5,000 already killed on both sides.
Well, in our nation's capital, Tennessee 7th District Congressman Mark Green posted reaction to the president's Oval Office speech, saying the president's providing zero guarantees to ensure the $100 million for Gaza doesn't get into the hands of Hamas. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
7:37, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. And got a lot of folks asking about the list of Republicans who are opposing Jim Jordan. Now, if you are just joining us, and people come in and out all the time, so we just carry Jim Jordan live. I was wondering if he was going to just announce, you know what, I'm dropping out. It's clear. The message is obvious and well received that I am clearly not the guy that these moderate Republicans want. But he didn't. He came out and he said, I'm going to continue on, and we're going to try to hammer something out over the weekend. So, Ken, but a lot of folks on the super text line asking for the list of the Republicans not supporting Jim Jordan. You have found such list.
I have found that list. There are 22 of them. I just emailed it to you. But do you want me to go down the list?
Go ahead and go down the list.
All right. Number 1 is Don Bacon of Nebraska, voted for McCarthy. Vern Buchanan of Florida, voted for Byron Donalds. Ken Buck of Colorado, voted for Tom Emmer. Lori Chavez Raymer of Oregon, voted for McCarthy. Anthony DeEsposito of New York voted for former Representative Lee Zeldin.
Yep.
Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida voted for Steve Scalise. Jake Elzey of Florida voted for Mike Garcia of California. Drew Ferguson of Georgia voted for Scalise. Andrew Garbarino of New York voted for Zeldin. Carlos Jimenez of Florida voted for McCarthy. Tony Gonzalez of Texas voted for Scalise. Kay Granger of Texas, Scalise. John James of Michigan voted for Candace Miller, former Congresswoman and the current Public Works Commissioner in Macomb County, Michigan. Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania voted for former House Speaker John Boehner.
What?
Yep.
Who was that?
That's Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania.
He's an idiot.
Jennifer Kiggins of Virginia voted for McCarthy. Nick LaLota of New York voted for Zeldin. Michael Lawler of New York voted for McCarthy. Marionette Miller Meeks voted for Kay Granger of Texas. John Rutherford of Florida voted for Scalise. Michael Simpson of Idaho voted for Scalise. Peter Stauber of Minnesota voted for Bruce Westerman, Republican of Arkansas. And interesting about him, he voted for Jordan in the first round. Steve Womack of Arkansas voted for Scalise. So there are 22 members of the House, Republican members of the House, who voted against Jordan in this latest round.
All right, Ken.
Actually, that's the second round.
Yeah, second round.
Yeah,
and they were going to have one yesterday. Jordan realized he didn't have the votes.
Right.
So now they're going to have another vote today, right?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, 11, 12 o'clock.
He's going to try it again today, and then he said the weekend goal is to elect a speaker, and I will put this list on our socials.
So what do you think? Do you think he's going to get more or less votes this third round? Because, we ought to call Andy Ogles.
Because
he's been spot on. I'll also ask, Andy, like the over-unders on the football games. Because, he had the prediction absolutely spot on with that second round.
Well, yeah, we need Ogles or Burchett because those two, even Scott Desjardins, Mark Green, one of those guys.
Right.
John Rose,
sure. Well, I'm in the middle of a talk radio segment, so I can't text anybody right now.
Come on, Dan. I'll read some of my favorite poetry while you do that.
You know what? I'm gonna send a Scott Desjardins text right now.
Okay.
Can you come on?
Now let's see what's going on.
Because they love when I do that.
Oh, they do.
Like now.
Yeah.
Like now.
I'm sure they're not busy.
No, and it's funny because these guys are very busy, and they got a lot going. Well, I don't know what are they doing? Because it's not like they're, if you're like Scott Desjardins, Andy Ogles, all of the Tennessee Congress people have all voted for and are supporting Jim Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they're not meeting and there's not a whole lot going on, if you already support Jim Jordan, then do you have a lot to do?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe I'll
I've got
ask
another
Scott.
question.
Oh, look at this. Hold on.
Who do we got?
Call in now.
All right.
Call in. Scott Desjardins.
He's calling right now?
I'm asking
There he
him to
is.
call in. All right. Hey, Johnny, let's do it. There he is. Well, go ahead. Answer the phone.
All right. By the way, this list I'm putting on our socials right now.
Okay. Very good. Do you think Congressman Scott DesJarlais will be like insulted if I ask him if he has a lot to do right now? Because, they're not doing much except arguing over the whole speakership thing.
Well, I think he's pretty tired of it all, too.
Oh, I know he is. Congressman Scott DesJarlais, thank you for joining us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
All right, so let me ask this one question. How busy are you guys? I mean, with all of this going on, I mean, is there a lot for you to do? I mean, you already know that you're supporting Jim Jordan, and so what's going on?
Now, frankly, we should be a heck of a lot busier.
Okay, so I was right.
We're having some meetings, we're having some briefings, but for the most part, we're waiting. We're waiting to get a speaker. We're doing hours and hours of conferences trying to find solutions to this problem, and about an hour, we're going to vote again.
Yes. Okay, so let me ask, we just all heard Jim Jordan speak. Do you have any predictions? I mean, I know that there was a meeting yesterday that didn't go well.
Right, it didn't. They were looking for that alternative pathway we were talking about, a temporary power structure to allow some of these bills to be introduced until we can solve the speaker problem, and that it devolved into basically what was perceived to be a deal with the Democrats and ceding control of the Democrats, something I could never have voted for, so I'm glad that went away.
Yeah.
I was looking at it if 218 Republicans could give Patrick McHenry limited powers to allow us to function, I would take a look at that, but it would have had to have been a Republican set of rules, and we didn't get there. So now I listened to Jim Jordan's press conference this morning as well. He's a fighter. I would be very, very proud to have him as our speaker, but from what I'm hearing, he did not gain any ground yesterday in talking to his opposition. So I would anticipate we have a vote that's very similar to the first two. I fear that it may be worse for him. I think people that are not for Jim Jordan sense that if they band together and perhaps strengthen, then we'll move on to another option, which would be unfortunate for all of us. But if I'm being honest with you, I think that's what's going to happen.
So there's so many different reasons I keep hearing why people, these moderates, don't want to vote for Jim Jordan. You've got the folks that are from Biden-friendly districts, and so the Democrats are painting him as an insurrectionist and an election denier and all that. So the worry is if these moderate Republicans in Biden districts voted for Jordan, then they'll be held accountable and voted out. So that's number one. Number two, from what I'm hearing, and this is part of the news story, it has been all week, is these quote unquote tactics by the Jim Jordan supporters. They like Jim Jordan as a person, but some are saying the tactics, including death threats, are really turning off these Republicans. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I know several who've gotten death threats. You probably listened to audio of, I think it may have been a call to Don Bacon's wife in Omaha, Nebraska, that was very vile and profane and threatening. The conservative groups, I don't know that Heritage Action actually is scoring the vote. I know that they were talking about it. Club for Growth is scoring the vote. Eagle Forum, a few others are saying if you don't, vote for Jim Jordan, it's going to hurt your conservative rating. But frankly, the people that are voting against Jim, most of them are very moderate and probably don't have good scores anyway.
Right.
I don't think Jim Jordan is driving any of this tactic. House Freedom Caucus, which I've been a member of since 2015, has had a reputation among the moderates of being a thorn in the side, too conservative, and so I think there's a stigma there that Jim helped form Freedom Caucus, and I frankly there's a faction within the Freedom Caucus that are probably more unyielding than I would like them to be. I think it's our job to pull the conference to the right and get more conservative legislation, but I also think we have to cooperate to a certain extent, and I think there's a group within there, perhaps the group of 8 that voted to oust McCarthy. If they would have had a plan or a strategy before they staged a coup, we probably would be in a little bit better position. So I think there's a lot of resentment for that, and you heard that some of the members think voting Jordan in would reward that behavior. So there's some disdain and distrust of Freedom Caucus among the more moderates in the conference. And Jim Jordan's been here 17 years. In the last 3 or 4, he's worked more with the conference in a compromising role, if you will, as judiciary chair. And so I think he's built a lot of goodwill, and that's why he's doing as well as he is now. But I think that there's some other folks that just are hard-nosed, kind of like there were people that were anti-Scalise or, the ones that, frankly, couldn't tolerate Kevin McCarthy. So a lot of division, a lot of personalities within our conference, and we're just having trouble uniting around one person.
Part of the dynamic seems to be that you've got the pro-Kevin McCarthy people who are angry because McCarthy is out and they'll never vote for a guy like Jim Jordan, who has the support of some of these folks that had a hand in the booting of McCarthy. Same dynamic with the Steve Scalise supporters as well. So, I mean, it seems to me like there's a bunch of cliques going on in there right now. And, some of these folks are sort of overlapping in some of the different cliques. It just sounds like a mess. Now, one question I have is, if not Jim Jordan, then who? And one name that keeps coming up, and it's a guy that I really like, is Byron Donalds.
Yeah, and I think the problem with that is Byron Donalds is Freedom Caucus. He's a very sharp guy, clearly a rising star. I haven't known Byron a long time because he hasn't been here a long time, but he's well-spoken, he's articulate, seems to be a uniter. But I think Jim Jordan is kind of the pinnacle of anybody Freedom Caucus that could have a chance. And that's because of the work that Jim's done, his skills, his articulation, investigations. And so, like I said, I think he's won over the hearts of a lot of the conference. Byron hasn't been here long enough to have those accomplishments, but he would still be associated with the Freedom Caucus. And I don't think there's anyone other than Jim that's in the Freedom Caucus that would stand any chance of getting elected. So I think Jim is the best shot that the more far-right faction of the conference can hope for. So I think if that doesn't happen, if we have a vote today and Jim goes the wrong direction, we've been at this now. I think we nominated him over a week ago, and so we're still paralyzed. And at some point, Jim's got to, ask himself. I don't think going 15 rounds like we did in January has the same sense of achievement as they did back then. Those were people that were seeking concessions from Kevin McCarthy. I don't think Jim Jordan has concessions to give. So I think I don't mind the idea of looking outside the conference, considering how divided we are within. I floated the name Lee Zeldin. Yep. I know Lee Zeldin's a Jim Jordan supporter. Kevin McCarthy's a Jim Jordan supporter right now. So you're right, the dynamics are odd. But I think if Jim goes the wrong direction, then we have to go back to the drawing board, and we need to stay here until we get it done.
One of the things that Congressman Scott Desjardins joining us, one of the things that is, and I mentioned this earlier, clearly you've got Donald Trump, who the Republicans want because he is doing so well in the primary polling, right? So that's the brand of conservatism that is out there right now is, sort of that Donald Trump style and the policies and everything else. Then you've got Jim Jordan, who is, kind of like Donald Trump in not only spirit, but also policy. So it does seem to me, and agree or disagree, I'm curious to where you stand on this, but it seems to me like, by and large, the Republican Party, given where the polling is with Donald Trump, they want someone like Jim Jordan. Am I wrong?
No, I think most of us do. I mean, clearly 200 of us do. Yeah. And, Donald Trump, though, one thing that I find interesting is that there's 221 Republicans, and as of today, it may have changed a little bit, but last I heard there's been 76 Republican representatives who have endorsed him for president. So take that for what it's worth. But, Donald Trump's clearly leading the field. I don't see anything derailing him other than some type of a legal issue where he's in jail. And but I don't think if Donald Trump was our nominee today that he would get as many votes as Jim Jordan because of people from those swing districts that he is not a force that would help them in their election.
Right. Okay, so do you have a name? You mentioned Lee Zeldin. A lot of the people in New York who are in those Biden-friendly districts probably are okay with Lee Zeldin. They're afraid of Jim Jordan. So Lee Zeldin is one name. Any others?
Yeah, I mean, Tom Emmer, who's our whip, he was the NRCC chairman. He's a guy from Minnesota, pretty well liked. I don't know if he can get to 218. Let's see. There's just a few guys. Brad Winstrup is the doctor that gave aid to Steve Scalise on the baseball field. He's the head of our doctors caucus. Military background, well-spoken, pretty non-controversial. Everyone likes him. So, someone like that could emerge if we have a conference. Elise Stefanik has been thrown out there. I don't know. It's just, it seems to me, I just look at all those names. I can throw out any number of names, and believe me, we've all been searching to find somebody that would please everyone, and no one seems to have the answer to that question. So I think what we do is we have this vote at 10 o'clock. If Jim goes the wrong way, and we'll talk and see if there's just any movement at all or people are dug in, and then we need to go back to conference and start whittling this down and finding somebody that can be a consensus candidate. Maybe there needs to be limitations. We're going to do this till, I guess they tried that with McHenry. Let's do it till the end of the year. Let's get through this crisis that we're in now, and then reevaluate and have another election. So maybe we have a temporary speaker, or maybe a Patrick McHenry package can be revised so that only Republicans vote that package in. So I wish I had better answers for you, Dan.
No, it's I know you're busy, and I appreciate you calling me on such short notice. And have a great weekend if you can. And should be interesting later on this morning. Thanks very much, Congressman.
Absolutely, thank you.
7:54 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WT. I'm shaking my head. You people on the camera, you see, I'm shaking my head just because there's so many different ways to talk about this. It is so clear where the Republican Party is. And clearly, we are more for a Jim Jordan than a Kevin McCarthy. I understand the dynamic with the Kevin McCarthy. You can hear sort of the despair in Congressman Desjardins' voice where he's shaking his head too. And Andy Ogles, if we had Andy on the phone, I know that he would be shaking his head too. Probably John Rose as well. So there is a dynamic within the Republican Party right now where you have all of these different factions, and some of these factions overlap. But it's just like we look so dysfunctional, and from a pragmatic standpoint, I don't know if this is going to serve us well in 2024. 7:55 on WTN. Winter is on the way, and with it, possible snow, ice, and power outages. My question to you, are you ready? Dan Mandis here for Cove Generators. They are experts in keeping your power on and your family safe. Be prepared this winter with a Generac home standby generator, the best generators around to keep your heat on, even if your power goes out. Now, Cove Generators are your premier Generac home standby generator dealer. Call them today and be prepared for winter. At Cove Generators, all they do is generators, so they know what they're doing, and they do it at a fair price and great customer service. If you've already got a generator, call them to perform maintenance on your Generac automatic standby generator or any brand of generator you own. Find them online. It's covegenerators.com, and never lose power again. Call them today at 931-559-3311. 931-559-3311. Terms and conditions may apply. Call for details. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out.
8 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now in our nation's capital, Jim Jordan says he is not dropping out of the speaker's race.
We got important work to do. Important work to do. We need to help Israel. We need to get the appropriations process moving so that the key elements of our government are funded and funded in the right way, particularly our military. We need to get back to our committee work. And frankly, we need to continue the oversight work that I think is so darn important.
Held an impromptu press conference this morning. Meanwhile, Tennessee 4th District Congressman Scott Desjardins says they may vote again within the hour. Jordan indicating voting could run through this weekend. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Here's Derek Dennis.
A primetime address from President Biden last night calling for continued support for Israel against the militant group Hamas. He wants Congress to approve $14 billion in U.S. aid for Israel, another $60 billion for Ukraine as it fights off Russia.
The president is making this massive funding request of Congress, but for now, this isn't going to be going anywhere. The House is still at a standstill, unable to get anything done until Republicans finally settle on a new speaker.
ABC's Mary Bruce. Meantime, many believe an Israeli ground invasion into Gaza is imminent. There have been new Israeli airstrikes this morning, and the militant group Hezbollah has been firing rockets back into Israel. Biden wants it to stop.
As I said in Israel, as hard as it is, we cannot give up on peace. We cannot give up on a two-state solution. Israel and Palestinians equally deserve to live in safety, dignity, and peace.
Nearly 5,000 people killed on both sides in 2 weeks.
In our nation's capital, Tennessee 7th District Congressman Mark Green posted reaction on X saying the president's providing zero guarantees to ensure that $100 million he wants for Gaza doesn't get into the hands of Hamas. Right now in Nashville, rent keeps going up. Rent.com estimates the average rent in Metro Nashville is now $2,165 a month. That same apartment cost about $1,450 a month in 2020, a 33% spike in 3 years. Researcher John Leckie telling News 2 what's fueling the increase.
I think you have a lot of people coming in from outside of Nashville, coming from places, from those more expensive regions, coming from your New Yorks, coming from your Los Angeles, places where rents are in some cases double what they typically are in Nashville.
Leckie says rent will come down as more apartments are built. Right now, rentcafe.com ranks Nashville as having the 4th highest rate of apartment construction in the nation. Market Numbers Report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Futures ahead of the opening bell show Dow futures down 98. S&P futures down 13. NASDAQ futures down 64. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Nashville's morning news with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
8:07 Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I've got a very specific request from the Super Text line. Actually, 3. Please, Dan, for the love of all that is holy, no more Joe Biden audio. I only did it once today in Nashville. I did it a couple of times on Red Eye Radio, and you people are in luck because I can't take any more of it. So Chris will probably play some Biden audio. I know that Brian will, and Matt Murphy probably will as well. I mean, I've said my piece on it. I mean, obviously what the president is trying to do is bundle everything together, funding for Ukraine, funding for Israel, because he knows that Ukraine funding the $60 billion more than likely wouldn't pass on its own. And so he's attached it to Israel. I think that's a dirty, rotten political trick. And by the way, last night, Biden, talking about how bad Iran is. And my big takeaway is, well, you're the one that funded them. So it's great because, the entire speech last night was in complete contradiction to what he's been doing for the last 3 years. However, I move on. 8:09 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to talk a little bit about Joe Biden, but from a polling standpoint, because I do find it interesting. There's some new polling out there that, at least to me, it's not really all that surprising. But some people might be surprised. This was Joe Biden when he, I think this was like his first or second day in office when he said,
and I'm sending a clear message to the world. America is back.
So that was what the president said right at the beginning of his administration, which was,
America is back.
But when you think about how America isn't back, we are like the exact opposite of back. We're going backwards. Do you realize that we live in a country where the official position of the Democrats, roughly half of America, is that they can't define a woman? They don't know what a woman is, where a man can be a woman just by declaring it?
America is back.
No, really not. Do you realize that we live in a country that has been invaded by millions of people from dozens of other countries, dangerous countries, and we don't even know who they are or what their intentions are?
America is back.
No. And we also live in a country where home ownership is now way out of reach for many Americans thanks to Bidenomics and Joe Biden's economy. And interest rates have, of course, been soaring, as you know. So you've got to love that, Bidenomics.
America is back.
No, it's not, actually. We live in a country where crime is soaring. And roughly half the country, the Democrats, they don't even want the criminals to be prosecuted.
America is back.
Well, how about this? Because America is not back. America is so far from back, we are going backwards. One of our longest running allies in the Middle East has been attacked with over 1,000 killed. And we're inching closer and closer to World War III, but it was Donald Trump that was going to tweet us into oblivion.
America is back.
Well, just a few hours ago, a couple of our military bases housing our U.S. forces in Iraq were targeted by drones and rockets after Iraqi militants warned Washington, you better not get involved in the situation with Hamas in Gaza, otherwise we're going to come after you.
America is back.
I think it's clear that America is not back. Actually, you know what? America was back when Donald Trump was president. That's when America was back. And so clearly America has gone backwards. And it's ironic because when Joe Biden was coming into office, everybody was talking about how America was in decline. And I always thought that was interesting because we were coming out of COVID and things were starting to turn around. I understood and understand even today that things were still pretty dire. But things are still pretty dire. And everything that Joe Biden touches turns to crap. And that is the bottom line. And I think that is why this headline is out there this morning. Donald Trump leads Biden in 5 pivotal swing states. More alarm bells for the White House as the president trails in areas that could decide the election. And by the way, they're tied in Michigan. So this is a great story. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not really surprised based on everything that I just talked about. But this is from the Daily Mail, and this is the numbers. These are the numbers. In Arizona, Donald Trump is at 47%, Joe Biden 43%. Georgia, Trump 48%, Biden 43%. Michigan, both tied at 44%. Nevada, Joe Biden still has the lead, 46-43, but definitely Trump is within striking distance. North Carolina, Trump is at 47%, and Joe Biden is at 43%. Pennsylvania, 46% to Joe Biden's 45%. And Wisconsin, Donald Trump is at 46% and Joe Biden is at 44%. And the question has to be asked as to why. Well, the obvious question is that Joe Biden, the obvious answer is that Joe Biden has screwed up just about everything. And listen, I understand that, people are listening and they're saying, well, of course you're saying that. You're a conservative. Really? Because independents are noticing that as well. And Donald Trump is getting more and more independents. And when they start breaking this down by issue, it's clear that Bidenomics is what's driving this whole change from support for Joe Biden to support for Donald Trump. It's Bidenomics. It's the economy, stupid. I'll talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead. This is very big news because when you wake up in the morning, in the news today, you've got the Israelis. They've got their 400,000 ground troops right there on the border with Gaza. They now have tanks right there on the border as well. They're going to be going in any second now. And, I understand that there seems to be chaos going on as the Republicans are trying to find a Speaker of the House. But what about the chaos that is the rest of America? I mean, I understand that the Republicans have opened themselves up for a criticism, but what's happening in the House of Representatives is nothing compared to all of the chaos that I just mentioned happening across the country. 8:15, time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Partly cloudy today, a high of 79. I should say high of 70 today. Sunny this weekend, high on Saturday of 79. High on Sunday, 69 and 58 now at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Talking about Bidenomics and that all of those issues. Because, the issues that I was mentioning with Joe Biden, all of those are impacting where he is, or at least most of them, are impacting how his polling is doing. And again, the headline, if you're just joining us in the last minute or so, the headline was that Donald Trump is leading Joe Biden in a number of states that would be considered swing states. And I realize that, we are a year away. I get that. Can you imagine how bad things are going to be in a year? I mean, in a year, we may be in the middle of World War III. And while you could say, well, yeah, then Joe Biden will be a wartime president, and they always seem to get a bump in the polls and get a bump in popularity. It is my contention that the more people realize that Joe Biden effectively funded Iran and funded the attack on Israel, the lower people will think about Joe Biden. The lower his ratings will go, the lower his favorability will go, and the higher his unfavorability numbers will go. They'll increase. But about Bidenomics, I want to talk about another poll real quick, and I don't have a lot of time to do this. But there's another poll out there where as the president is trying to discuss and convince folks the greatness of Bidenomics, people aren't buying it. Not by a long shot. 51% of swing state voters said they felt the national economy was better off during the Trump years. 51%. Going forward, they say 49% say that they would trust Donald Trump with the economy. 35% saying they feel the same way about Joe Biden. Among swing state voters who registered the economy as their number one issue, just 14% said Bidenomics is working, while 65% say that it is not working. You know, one of the things, and I know that I've discussed this kind of a thing before. Do you think that people who are maybe moderates or independents, what do you think they're more concerned about? The fact that the economy sucks and still does suck, or that the administration is lying to them every single day by trying to convince them that Bidenomics is actually working? So is it his incompetence or his lying that has people really upset and concerned? Now, to me, it's both. To me, it's both. By the way, this was on CNBC.
You see time and again that voters aren't necessarily feeling that, including in the latest data, which you've mentioned, the Bloomberg Morning Consult poll. Yeah. Biden is not getting good marks on the economy right now, and generally people don't seem to be thrilled with Bidenomics.
Yeah, they certainly don't. Look at that. 49% bad, 26% good in terms of how people feel about Bidenomics.
Right. I mean, people feel about Bidenomics like they feel about Joe Biden. I just gave you the numbers. Only 26% of voters said Bidenomics has been good for the economy, while 49% said Biden's policies have been overall bad. Now, again, I understand. This poll means nothing right now, except that right now Americans seem united in our disapproval of Joe Biden. By the way, I know that this whole conflict within Israel and Hamas, I know that this is only a couple of weeks old, but you know what? Americans have an opinion as to how Joe Biden is handling all of this. I've got those numbers for you coming up right before the news on WTN. I wanted to tell you about my friends at Zero Res. Now, fall is here, and that means that cold and flu season is just around the corner. Get your home Zero Res healthy by cleaning the largest filter in your home. It's your carpet. With an almost 10-year-old in the house, this is really important. Now, those germs trapped in your carpet can impact your family's health, but you can protect them with Zero Res. Now, this is the carpet cleaning company that I trust, and clearly, I'm not the only one. You know, they've got 3,600 Google reviews and 700 Facebook reviews as well. Now, Beth in Nashville says that their tech was polite, on time, and hardworking. Zero Res went the extra mile, and these days, that is rare. Now, Beth and thousands of others have great things to say about Zero Res. Now, right now, they've got a great deal going on. 3 rooms of carpets cleaned for only $119, plus a free hallway. And you get 20% off of air duct cleaning as well. Restrictions may apply. Call today, 615-535-9376. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. 615-535-9376, ZeroResNashville.com. Spell it backwards or forwards. It is the right way to clean.
One of the big words being thrown around in the investing world right now is this one. You may have heard it. Fiduciary. The idea that the investment advisor has to keep your interest first when they give advice. Now, it's being used in a marketing sense right now, and one of the things that I found fascinating, there was a study by the University of Southern California and Indiana University. They looked at investment advisor portfolios, and they found that they were making basic academic mistakes in the management of their own portfolios. And the question that they asked was, if they can't even keep their own best interest first, how are they going to keep your best interest first? That was the question. Now, one of the things that we do at Paul Winkler Inc. is every one of our offices, 10 offices, is run by a degreed planner, number one. But we go way beyond the call of duty when it comes to fiduciary and making sure that we're using academically sound principles in investing. evidence-based. In other words, a lot of this is backed by Nobel Prize winning research. To learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
Get a guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate and sell your home hassle-free. Dan Mandis here. Did you know that Mark Spain Real Estate has been helping homeowners sell their homes for nearly 30 years? Over 44,000 satisfied clients have trusted Mark Spain to sell their homes when starting their next phase in life. Mark has nearly 10,000 five-star reviews, making them the #1 most reviewed real estate company in America. And as the most experienced real estate team, you can trust them to sell your home quickly and for the most money. It's all about the guaranteed offer. Their agents sell over 4 times more homes than the average real estate agent. So call them today if you need to get out of your house today. 855-299-SOLD. That's Mark Spain Real Estate, and move when you want to move. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer on your home today. That's markspain.com and start packing.
Speaker's race voting to ramp up any moment now. Israel setting up hospitals, waiting for supplies before that ground campaign in Gaza. These stories and more at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 826 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. So, how do the American people feel Joe Biden is doing on the war? Not great, actually. 56 disapprove of the president's handling of the war so far, Israel and Hamas. Oh, and by the way, the news that just came out, Ken, that the president is on his way to the beach in Delaware.
Oh, that's where he's going to take care of business.
You know, he's had a very busy couple of days.
Yeah, well, he was up late last night.
He was, actually. Was he? I don't know.
Maybe for him.
That because he had the speech.
Yeah,
there you go. All right, I got it. You know what, though? Here's the thing, and I'm just going to say this, is that I understand that he can work from home. There's a lot of stuff going on. As a matter of fact, I think Israel's going to go in this weekend. So 56% of the American people disapprove, 44% approve. This is from CBS News, who did the poll.
Look, start off with this. Now, Biden's approval on handling this conflict is just a few ticks higher than his overall approval, and it's net negative. And part of this is the partisan splits that you might expect to see, but I want to point this out. It's a little bit less partisan than you might otherwise expect because you've got a third of Democrats who disapprove of how Biden's handling this, and Republicans, okay, this is not high at 28% approval, but it is higher than the way they approve of him overall or on a lot of other issues. Why is that? Well, you used the word in the intro, mixed, and there's a bit of a mix on what exactly people want Joe Biden to do.
Well, and here's the other thing, is that what is Joe Biden capable of doing, which, quite frankly, not a whole heck of a lot. 828, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Friends, what if you could be credit card debt-free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Loan Pronto's all-new Express Equity Credit Line is just what you need. Now, they can help you immediately, and you don't have to do a full home refi. You can simply tap a small portion of the equity you have and enjoy a super low monthly payment. So call them today, Loan Pronto. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out at 615-499-5780. Even if you did a total home refi recently or you just bought your home, you can tap that equity with this fast and easy program. Ask about their VA loan program as well. 615-499-5780, loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS number 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
8:30 on the dot this Friday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now in our nation's capital, Jim Jordan says he's not dropping out of the speaker's race after failing twice to garner enough votes.
Picked up a few. We lost a few. I think the ones we lost can come back. So, look, there's been multiple rounds of votes for speaker before.
Jordan says the weekend goal is to elect a speaker. Could they do it here in the next hour? A third vote is imminent. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage.
Israel's defense minister yesterday told his troops they will soon see Gaza from the inside, suggesting a ground offensive is imminent. Satellite images show hundreds of Israeli tanks and armored vehicles north of Gaza. A source says Israel is preparing for a long war with many casualties. One reason for the delayed ground invasion: Israel is setting up hospitals waiting for more medical supplies.
That is Andrew Dimbert reporting. President Biden in that Oval Office speech last night making the case for the U.S. to stand firmly with Israel, but also Ukraine, calling for a massive investment, asking Congress for $105 billion in foreign aid, including $60 billion for Ukraine, $14 billion for Israel. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Watch for a continuation of yesterday's pullback in share prices. Before the opening bell, Dow futures pointed to a 59-point decline. The S&P and Nasdaq were both poised to give up about 0.2%. Investors on Thursday handed the Dow another 250-point loss. The industrial average closed at 33,414. The Standard & Poor's 500 gave up 0.85%. The Nasdaq Composite lost nearly 1%. Shares in solar panel companies tumbled after warnings that demand in Europe has weakened significantly. Solar Edge plunged nearly 28% in early trading after it reported a miss on revenue, gross margins, and operating income in the third quarter. The head of the United Auto Workers Union is expected to hold a Facebook Live event today as more than 30,000 members continue their strike against Detroit's big three automakers. Sean Fain previously has used these Friday events on Facebook to announce strike expansions.
All right, we are 2 minutes into the brand new trading day. Let's check stocks right now. The Dow is down 42, S&P down 6, and the Nasdaq is off 39 in early trading. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. 8:32 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk. You know, if you've always wanted to live by the lake, you've got to listen for the next 60 seconds. Dan Mandis here for Lake Living TN. Now on Saturday, October 28th, you've got a great opportunity to pick up a lakeside property at a fraction of the cost. These prices are incredible, but limited, so you've got to call now to reserve your private tour. 2-acre wooded lots are starting at just $64,000. Lake Village packages are starting at just $349,000, and the last remaining waterfront lots are $50,000 off. Now, this highly anticipated community is just 20 minutes outside of Knoxville and features 10 miles of walking trails, over 3 miles of shoreline pickleball courts, and so much more. Check them out online at lakelivingtn.com to see more. That's lakelivingtn.com. And don't forget, that's Saturday, October 28th, a week from tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Call right now to secure your private tour, 865-408-9992, 865-408-9992. Invest in something real with lakelivingtn.com. 8:37, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for the gang of four amigos. I'll be amigo number one. I'm Dan. Chris is there. Morning, Chris.
Hey, good morning.
Johnny B, how are you?
Good morning.
And Ken's here as well, way over there. And Ken, great job today. Johnny, great job today. I think it's been an effective broadcast.
Yeah, it has. I mean, we have worked really hard this morning.
Yes,
Very
we have.
hard. It's been this has been an incredible news cycle, man. I mean, it is changing every 10 minutes.
It is. And it's a horrible story. You know, the whole Hamas it's a horrible story. It's been great to cover. Obviously, there's a lot going on. And
well, I mean, take, for instance, our interview with Congressman Scott Desjardins.
Mm-hmm.
Now that voting is getting underway, another third round of speaker voting, that interview's old.
Yeah, but
You know
that
what I
shows
mean?
you how timely it was, Ken Weaver.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the beauty of radio. It is immediate. It's right now.
Okay, so I'm going to...
I loved how you opened the interview. You said, is it going to be rude if I ask them if they're not doing anything?
Yeah.
Hey, we got Scott Desjardins on the phone. You guys aren't doing anything, are you? I thought it was awesome.
Okay, now, in my defense, it's a legit question because...
Well, it is.
Yeah, and he actually backed me up. He's like, well, we could be a lot busier. So, you know, there you go.
What do you think about that?
I think that you're going to have some updated news, Chris Hand, because I think are they doing the vote at 10 o'clock?
It is that word we like to use here, imminent.
Imminent or fluid?
Imminent.
Although the word fluid for some reason makes people feel uncomfortable. So Chris,
there's imminent fluid.
imminently fluid. Whatever. Hey, Chris, you brought something for this segment.
I did. I brought something for show and tell. I know how much everybody loves the artificial intelligence hip hop that I bring.
That's
the Donald Trump raps and all that.
Yes.
And a new one got released last night, and this is actually an artificial intelligence rap battle between Barack Obama and Donald Trump.
Really? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and then hit play.
Hit it.
I'm Joe Rogan. I'm Joe Biden. I'm Joe Namath. I'm Joe Rogan. Joe Biden, and I'm here to officiate his rap battle.
Your wife is a thought, and she used to pose nude.
Well, Big Mike, your wife is a dude.
January 6th, you caused a violent insurrection.
Well, that's because they stole my election.
I asked Melania, you can't get in this era.
You want to take away our guns, but you still have protection.
That rat on your head is a wig. Who you fooling? You're orange like a Cheeto when you're connected to Putin. You're like Dennis Rodman. I'm more like MJ.
You had the worst economy, probably in decades.
Overweight, out of shape, literally dead weight.
Who the hell you talking to? I know you skipped leg day.
A racist, a traitor, the KKK defend you.
Well, you're not American, Obama. You're from Kenya. You left the border open. Economy was broken. I bet that you were on the island. Everybody knows it.
Under me, there was less division and more unity.
The first black president hated the black community. You working with the feds, wiretapping people's phones. We all know that you killing innocent kids with drones.
You're a fake politician. You're an actor. You're a fraud.
Well, at least I don't worship government over God.
You didn't pay your taxes. I'm loved by the masses.
Maybe the upper classes housing market collapses.
Rappers rap about me. I'm cool in the trap house.
Trap house, Obama? Don't you mean bathhouse? Plus, they were rapping about me when you were a senator. I'm like Chris Hansen. I'm about to catch a predator.
You said there were good people on both sides.
I was out of context. The fake news when it lied.
You dropped the ball in COVID, and no one is surprised.
You spent trillions in the Middle East, and tons of people died.
Obama phone, Obamacare. I care about the poor.
I'm the first president to start no new wars.
You're guilty of collusion, ignoring the Constitution. I'm a two-time winner. I don't know about losing.
You created feminists. You funded terrorists. Your chef was dead in your backyard, and no one questioned it. Spied on my campaign. You and Bush crashed planes. Me, I give ordinary citizens a tax break.
Barack Obama did a great job, and so did Ronald Trump. Who do you think won? Comment in the radio box down below.
I want to, hey guys, I want you to remember the feeling that you have right now.
Okay.
This is the moment where you know that there's nobody still listening. You know, usually to get this feeling, you have to be like off the air and everything. But I mean,
I don't know about that, Brother Dan Mandis.
Really? Okay. Super texters, is that a thumb up or a thumb down?
We'll see.
I want to know. I want to know
Comment in the radio box below.
Comment to the radio box below. Okay, so I may be wrong on that. People apparently liked it.
I thought it was hilarious.
One person sent the fire emoji.
Fire flames.
There you go. That's exactly right. Yeah, everybody. Okay, and everybody's telling me that I'm wrong. That they're still listening. Whatever. You people can't take a joke.
To be fair, the ones that tuned out didn't hear you ask to text in if they were listening still.
Man, that's a good point. And by the way, one person says that was my best joke ever. So there you go. I'm very proud of that. All right.
I just felt like I had to bring something fun.
Yes.
The news cycle has been so heavy lately.
It has been.
And, I lost it when he said, I'm good in the trap house. He says, trap house? Don't you mean bathhouse? Oh,
yes.
gosh.
Who wrote that? Like, who did that?
High Res the Rapper.
High Res the Rapper.
He writes all those, and then he runs them through the artificial intelligence. And
okay.
Yep.
Well, I liked it. I actually did like it.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah. All right. You guys got anything else to say on that? Otherwise, we'll move on.
I thought it was good.
All right. Very good.
Yep.
All right. Guess what I'm going to do? That's all we got. All right. I guess we'll move on.
It's good stuff.
Hey, watch this, Chris. You want to hear another topic tank?
Yes.
Hey, what you guys think about the new Rolling Stones album?
I liked it.
I like it.
Is it just the greatest hits from the magazine, or?
The Rolling Stones have released a great new album, and I was, talking about what I was doing overnight. Well, I was supposed to be preparing for my topics on Red Eye Radio during the breaks. I was listening to the new Rolling Stones album.
You were jamming?
Hackney Diamonds.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's really good.
It is good.
You know what? I ought to force you to listen to Hackney Diamonds because you made me listen to that crap.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, I'll listen to
it. Something about restaurants.
Yeah. So New York Post released this fast food best and worst fast food chain in every state.
Yep. And so in Tennessee.
This one was so weird. They rated Shipley Donuts as the best fast food restaurant in Tennessee.
All right, so of the four of us, I've never had a Shipley. I know you've never had a Shipley donut.
I have not.
Shipley's donut.
I'm not sure.
Is it Shipley's or Shipley?
It's Shipley's, I do believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I used to have them in Kansas. I've not seen one in Nashville.
Well,
right.
I'm not sure how they rated it the highest because there's only 5 locations in Tennessee.
5 locations, yet it's the most popular.
They have the majority of the states have Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
In-N-Out Burger took over California and Nevada.
Of course it did. And you know what? Shipley's Donuts, your time is limited because once In-N-Out comes here, it's going to be over.
It's over.
You're going to be number 2. By the way,
got one over there on Lebanon Pike.
Okay. By the way, Kathy has the best joke of the day. Dan, you got a fire emoji? I didn't know Randy McNally listened to you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's the joke of the day, all right.
Well done, Kathy.
Yes.
Well done.
Just giving you some encouragement there, Brother Dan.
That's exactly
right. Kathy is ruthless all day. She'll text in and text Mac, but she always calls him Max, Mark, Mike.
Okay.
It is so funny.
It's like the people that call me Don.
We crack up all day.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to go on and on about the super texters, but I love the super texters.
They're the best.
They were even super texting me overnight when I was on Red Eye.
Really?
Yes. It gave me words of encouragement without the fire emojis. Anyway, so what is the whatever? What is the least favorite in Tennessee?
The least favorite in Tennessee, Wingstop.
The Wingstop, huh? They're putting one down there in Murfreesboro next to my house. Well, not next to it, because that's where I'd end up living, probably. But they're putting one over there by our house.
At least you won't have to worry about it impacting traffic, Ken.
That's a good point, man.
By the way, 2919 says you've obviously never had a kolache from Shipley's.
How's it spelled?
Kolache. So, yeah, I don't know. One guy said, Anthony says, Dan, In-N-Out is not that good. Come at me, bro. No, it's okay.
Those are
whatever
fighting words.
Yeah.
I like In-N-Out.
Yeah, I like In-N-Out too. I think people that don't like In-N-Out are communists.
They probably are. Do you go full animal style?
No, I don't. I'm very plain. Yeah, like I've talked about this before. I can't have a whole bunch of stuff on my food. So when I go to McDonald's, I will literally have the smallest hamburger they have with no onions, ketchup and mustard. That's it, man. 250 calories. Boom, right there.
But if you're counting the calories, why are you going to McDonald's?
I don't know.
Hit him with a Mike Pence.
I don't know. You know what's so funny? I can't actually say I don't know anymore without doing the Mike Pence cadence.
It has become the biggest inside joke in my house. Even my 1-year-old will walk around and go, I don't know.
I don't know.
What's this animal-style hamburger of which you speak?
You know what? It's the kind of hamburger that you eat and then a bunch of crap falls on your shirt.
It's just got like all the trimmings all smashed up.
Nice.
That
sounds good.
It's off menu. You gotta know a guy to know a guy. You know what I mean?
Ah, okay. Yeah.
It's also gross. I've actually had one before.
And you can get your fries that way as well.
So people can tell what you ate for lunch by looking at your shirt.
Boy, hell, they can smell it on you. I had a friend that used to get animal style. I worked with him, and I could always tell when he had animal style because he came in reeking of onions and all that stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Onions covered in melted cheese and grease.
Yeah.
I'm going to Arizona next week, and I'm going to get In-N-Out Burger.
Are you?
Animal style.
Okay.
I'll send you pictures.
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. You know, by the way, can I just say, and I love the listeners. If I get one more picture of an In-N-Out hamburger from people when they go to the West Coast and they go to In-N-Out and they send me pictures, like at least once a week, I get a picture of In-N-Out.
I'm sending you 2 now.
Of course you are. By the way, people are asking in that little rap thing that you played.
Yes, sir.
Did they mention Chris Hand?
No, Chris Hansen. MSNBC's Chris Hansen. He made
MSNBC's Chris Hansen.
Yeah, he made the joke about To Catch a Predator. Chris Hansen.
Okay.
You remember that? NBC's To Catch a Predator?
I don't, but I think more.
You don't remember that?
I do.
Why don't you take a seat? You don't remember that?
No.
That was like, really?
Oh, man. That
was fire.
Yeah, he'd always come on and say, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
So they would lure in child predators. It was How to Catch a Predator.
Oh,
and
I remember that.
They'd have the chat logs, and they'd like...
Oh, the dude like took off his clothes, like right there in the kitchen or whatever it was?
Like you'd hear like a little kid in the background like, come on in.
Yeah.
Come on, it's a boys trip, guys. You know, something like that.
Yeah.
And then,
Wait up, fellas.
and then it would
Hey, Journey will play open arms.
And then it would be, why don't you take a seat?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are you doing here?
I do remember that. And all right, very good. What's coming up after 9? I think we're done.
Well, it's an agenda-free Friday on the Chris Hand Show. We'll talk about anything you want to talk about. We're going to go over Joe Biden's speech. More war, huh? Everybody excited about more war? Well, we got that on the way. Plus, there's a local story in Chattanooga. Teachers were moonlighting as prostitutes. We're going to cover that. Plus, go over all of the breaking news from the speaker race.
Now,
I got to look that up.
Could
you like how I just glossed over that? And the speaker race.
Now, could you ask them for extra credit? If you're
I think that's only for woke leftist protests.
Okay. All right, fine. You'll notice Johnny and Ken were really quiet when I made that joke about extra credit, asking the teachers for...
I'm looking something up, Brother Dan.
Oh.
Teachers moonlighting as prostitutes.
I was trying to see if they'd keep me after school.
You wouldn't if you saw the picture, Johnny.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Are they on your computer?
They have that what do I call it? The not my president haircut. That's the best way I can put it.
You know what's so funny? Everybody knows what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. Everybody knows.
Me and my wife have been saying that since 2016. Like,
really?
Oh, look out for her. She got one of those not my president haircuts.
Is she like the girl that was screaming no when Donald Trump was being taken the oath of office? Remember that? No, she drops to her knees and she's screaming.
Here, look. Here we go.
Hold on. Well, now we've got to post it too.
All right.
You'll get my instant reaction. Oh no. Okay.
Oh
no. Wouldn't want extra credit or any.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
She's got the cutest beard.
No. What? That's not a girl, is it?
Oh,
That's a What is that?
It's 2023, Dan.
Okay, it's 2023.
2023.
That's funny.
Staring you in the
That's
face.
funny. Chris says got a great beard, and I'm like, that's not a girl, and you don't even know anymore. You don't even know.
No, you don't.
We got to go. 8:52. That's all I got.
Not a moment too soon. Hey, did you see the picture of her dressed as an elf?
That's odd. See, you know what that is? That's discount rack right there. Now we really got to go.
She goes to Spirit Halloween on November 1st.
There you go. You can save yourself a lot of time and energy by being prepared for the unexpected. That's why folks keep an extra key under their doormat and why cars come with a spare tire. Unfortunately, there is no spare to turn to when your internet goes out. Well, unless you have storm-ready Wi-Fi from Xfinity. That's right, storm-ready Wi-Fi. It's a battery-powered backup that automatically switches your Wi-Fi to a cellular connection in the event of an outage. So you can stream or search even when the power's out. Give your home Wi-Fi some backup and stay connected for up to 4 hours with storm-ready Wi-Fi only from Xfinity. Learn more at xfinity.com/storm-ready. Restrictions apply. Storm-ready Wi-Fi limited to customers within range of 4G LTE cellular signal. Speeds reduced to 30 by 7 megabits per second. Actual speeds vary. For more details, visit xfinity.com. Forward. You know what? I almost made it through that entire script, and I shanked visit. I was like 6 words away. Anyway, visit xfinity.com/storm-ready.